Awesome. Okay, so we made it, and we're at our last session, which is where we actually start to practice what we have learned. This really comes down to the neuroplasticity in our brains. And when we learn, it gets absorbed, but what really changes the neural pathways is the doing of it all. So the more you can practice, even with yourself, as I was mentioning to Jen earlier, I have to have a difficult conversation tonight with one of my clients. I literally have my script out and I'm going to be practicing until I have that conversation. So even that helps so that it just comes off a little more fluid and naturally. So we're going to be working through a few things. I am going to go probably talk for about 20-ish minutes, and then we're going to start to kind of jump into this. But what I really want to do is kind of just understand what what's happened with you as leaders. Have you seen a change? What's like one shift maybe as a leader that you've made since starting the program?
I think for me, um, I still don't find it terribly easy. But for me, it's about not jumping in and directing and taking a step back because it feels like if you jump in and direct, you're being helpful. But obviously, that isn't necessarily helpful. So um, I'm trying much more to take that step back and ask some questions rather than, oh, okay, I think we should do this at every point.
Jenna, what about you?
Um, so when we started this, I hadn't been a manager for very long, and this is like my first time being a manager. So really, it's just learning like what sort of management is, how to talk to people, and what like the goals of management are. So like, similar to Jen, like it's not being too authoritative or directive, which is an idea that I really struggled with anyway. But actually, it's like finding solutions together, and using some of the techniques to get there.
That's good. So you were really lucky. You became a manager and got to do this as your as your first go through.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What about you, Nikki? What have you seen as far as a shift you've made as a leader?
I think it's more the sort of when you know you need to have a difficult conversation or someone's asking you, can can you help me? But you kind of feel like they're asking you to be more involved than you probably should do. You need to take a step back. I think one of the things for me is always it will be quicker for me to do it rather than spend that time to get that person, explain it to them, sit down, and but also to go through that coaching. So it's for me to sit and realize actually it will be uncomfortable. There's going to be a level of discomfort, and I need to invest in that to get to the position I'm trying to get to. So that's been one of my main takeaways since the start of the process.
So sensing a theme. Have has anyone when they're sitting with someone on their team, have you guys let them know that you are working on coaching skills? And if so, have you even been as overt as to say, hey, I'm working on my coaching skills. This may not be perfect. I'm trying to be less directive so that they also, their brains kind of jiggering into place going, what does all that mean?
Generally, but not specifically when trying to deal with a situation.
We haven't had any kind of like emergency situations where that have kind of sort of like required like super quick responses or anything like that. So where we've had kind of like big projects, so I have absolutely said, this is what we're doing, this is what we're trying to achieve, this is what I'm trying to do, this is what I'm trying to get better at. So kick me when I don't do it. Um, and But what I have done is where we've had kind of like big projects that we've been working on, rather than kind of me going along to all of the meetings and being involved at every stage, I've kind of stepped back and said, right, where do you want me to come? Where do you think you need me to come? If I'm not needed, I won't come, because there's no point me kind of sitting there if you've got it. But let me know what you need from me, because I want to support and I want to make sure that you feel that you are being looked after in this situation, because it's quite a big project, but I know that you can do it. So just let me know. And then, we've kind of sort of checked in on the progress on a, kind of on a weekly basis. And it's been run with and delivered very successfully with very little input from me.
Okay, good. James, I haven't seen you in an eon.
Hey, Carol, I'm sorry I was late.
I'd love to hear from you. What's shifted for you since the beginning of the program?
I think everyone else might need to go on mute just to stop the echo. Thanks. Oops, let's not stop the echo. Hey, Agostina's in a different room. I'm going to go and join her, and we'll try and make this work. Hold on a second. So let me just leave, and we'll try again. But I have got some things to say.
Okay, I'll come back to you once you get all set up. We'll let Rob go. Hey, Agostina.
Do you guys hear me with an echo?
No, we don't hear you with an echo.
Okay, so it's him. It's not. Okay, because I was like, is it me?
Rob, what about you? What's shifted?
Yeah, I mean, like I find kind of a lot more naturalness about kind of shifting into what you might call like micro feedback or kind of micro coaching. You're kind of chatting to like, someone in your team and they're going to say something and you think, yeah, this would be a really good time just to kind of explore this just for a couple of minutes or so and just try and make a bit of progress on it. Like obviously there's some more kind of set piece element, which is kind of, something that I've kind of trained on historically, but it's always good to have a reminder on that. But yeah, just that, kind of very quick, very fluid. All right, yeah, let's do kind of 5 minutes of coaching on this, or like kind of 1 or 2 minutes of coaching on this. I thought it's been kind of really valuable.
Yeah, I mean, even if your coaching is micro coaching, every little bit helps. And as you try to further empower your people, the more coaching approach you have, the more empowered they feel. So they, and that empowerment's going to parlay into accountability. Okay, so James, back to you.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think, so obviously I've been managing people for a long time, although, the thing about law firms is that they're relatively unstructured management environments. They're not, tight chains of command in the way that some corporates are, for example, which makes it quite an organic sort of challenge in a way. I mean, what this has helped me to do is to reflect on the things that I've been good at, the things that I think I am naturally good at, and perhaps why, and those things which are more difficult for me. I think I'm always very focused on trying to get the best out of people, but also to enable people to get the best out of the environment, just to make work as satisfying as possible for people. I've traditionally found that easy to do, and when I've been able to build trust with people quickly, I found it much more challenging to do when I haven't been able to build that trust for whatever reason. And I think, strategies for those situations have been useful to think about, because those are actually the situations that really call on, I suppose, the skills that don't come naturally to me.
That's good. I mean, all of us, except for Jenna, who's a brand new manager, have been doing this for a while. And sometimes, and many of us, at least I can speak for myself, when I went into my first management role, I didn't have a management training program, right? You're thrust usually into these roles, and it's baptism by fire. And at least remembering or even seeing what new tools are out there that maybe you didn't have, even if you did have it, management training 10 years ago. Things get iterative, and that's a good thing because the makeup of the workforce continues to change. So what might have worked with a different generation may not work with the new generation. So learning these other options can help you in coaching your people. So Augustina, what about you? What's shifted since the beginning?
I think something that I quite struggle with, like, I thought I was gonna, like, I was interested in what I was gonna get from it, because I think lots of times you like come to like this kind of things and it's also about like empathy and listening, and I'm like, I think I'm a decently empathetic person, so I was like, I'm really interested in how this is gonna like hit. And I actually found it really, really insightful, because something that I am not very good at is delegating and stopping and not being like a mum. I'm not a mum in my personal life yet, but not being very like mumsy in my like approach to managing. And kind of like this past, what was it been, like 6 months to a year, have I like through the training, but also through like realizing in lots of situations, me realizing that lots of times it's been really disempowering to teams that I've led. And so like practicing the kind of like more being less of a mom, giving more agency, kind of like stopping, and instead of being like, yeah, we should do ABC and that's gonna be fine, and then kind of like sending them on their merry way, being like, so what do you think we should do? And like 98% of the time people have gone ABC, and I've been able to go like, oh my God, amazing, like great job, let's do that. I think that's a great idea, instead of just like telling people what to do. So I think it's been really, really fruitful in that sense. And I feel like I've learned a lot of kind of like to stop, think, and give people the chance to do it themselves, instead of just like offering people answers, and kind of like trying to work on kind of like the delegating side of that, and becoming more open on that, which I've really enjoyed. So yeah.
Well, I think it was you who I learned that cute little term, momager.
Yeah.
I thought that was adorable. I've totally used that before. Like, quit being a momager.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah, and one thing that you kind of alluded to was sitting in that silence. Today is going to be one of those moments where you're going to need to practice that. So your colleagues here are going to put on their actor faces and come with a situation, and take your time. Take your time, pull on your resources. We're giving grace so that you can practice the skills. Okay, so let me go ahead and just kind of run through a few things. Most leaders don't slow down enough to do this kind of work. So it's the active listening. As much as you can, look for the intuitive listening, which is watching the body language as best we can here remotely. Listen to the tone when they're coming with their situation. Some of the scenarios, have some curveballs that if the person who's playing the employee wants to throw at it. So watch those and just sit in the silence that could feel discomfort or uncomfortable. And more than anything, just breathe and think through it. There's no wrong answers. There's nothing that you're going to do wrong here. So the session matters because there are no perfect answers. There isn't a word by word script for the employees or the leaders. And you want to really think that leadership really lives in this messy middle of the conversations where we dissect and pull out the key items and find ways, actively listening to what we can move forward through questions and not necessarily as directed. Now, some of you may have scenarios that are more directive. So that's, again, listening to figure out which one is going to be the best approach. But hopefully you won't all lean into directive. and I encourage those, when you're acting as a leader, to lean into the coaching side when appropriate. So as I mentioned at the top of the hour, when it was just a couple of us, it's the neuroplasticity is going to come from the doing. So we've learned a lot, and there's a lot in the catalogs of our brain, but the actual ability to do it naturally is going to come from the practice. So you want to definitely, this is a moment, and I've encouraged you guys that if you have to have a difficult conversation, practice or practice on your own, just to be prepared. And it tells your brain, it's a rehearsal, right? It's a rehearsal in your brain so that when you're sitting in front of your employee, it gets a little bit easier. It's more natural, it just comes quickly. So there are 3 roles. You've got the employee, the leader, and the observer. Now, on the employee side, I'm really encouraging you to stay in the character of your scenario and don't make it too easy. Your job is to help the leader succeed. It's to help make it real. And you want to not dump everything at once, because that's not how people come and do that usually. They're like, I've got this situation. And then they're more than anything probably a little fearful to give you too much information as a leader. So put your head into an employee mindset and just think about what it usually feels like as an employee. Now, as the leader, you want to not rush. You want to ask before telling. And look, if you feel uncomfortable, you're probably doing it right, because these are new muscles. And silence is perfectly okay. Take your time. Now, the observers, there's a section in your packet. I'm trying to see what page it's on. It's towards the back, I think. Where you're going to the observer rubric. These are the things that I want you to just be. So everybody who's not the employee and not the leader, the rest of you are the observers. So you're going to listen, you're going to watch, and you're going to take notes so that when the scenario is done, you're going to bring your observations to the leader in the scenario, and to collectively we'll start to learn how to improve all of the skills that we've got. You always want to kind of come back to your anchors. You want to walk through, each thing as calmly and as methodically as you can. Don't try really hard not to come up with questions while the employee is talking, because many times, even in scenarios like this where you're playing the employee, you may, unbeknownst to you, come up with a solution just by acting it out, because we are really kind of, the human beings are solution oriented. None of us like to sit and wallow in it. I mean, we want to make sure that whatever we're doing, it's going forward, right? Very rarely do we want to slip back. But think about those early sessions we have around acknowledge and validate. And you want to, ultimately, it's not for you to take on the responsibility of the situation. We're really trying to keep the responsibility and the accountability on the employee. Oh, and the employee, if you're not happy with and I think this is one of the curveballs, if you're not happy with what the solution is, keep going until you figure out, like, I can't do that, or until you can figure out, like, I can do that. So common traps. The moment you feel the urge to fix it, just pause. You're probably skipping the understanding of it to begin with. If an employee comes at you with a scenario and you really don't think you understand it, as a leader, a coaching skill is to say, I would love to ensure that I'm supporting you as best I can. Can you give me a little more information? So if you feel like you didn't get enough information at the beginning, you can always say, before we go into this whole thing, I think I need a little bit more information. So don't rush it. I hope, I don't know, because I don't know if we have like real actors that could cry on cue, but if emotions are present, and I think some of you have maybe some emotions that we want to see if you can do, don't skip it. Like, don't, if the conversation stalls, let the emotion happen, and then let's tie to emotional regulation how we can calm the situation down and get to some sort of solution. I don't think I gave anybody a real scenario where it gets so emotional that you have to pause and come back to it. So hopefully, I think I remember that. So leaders often over-explain instead of exploring. So you want to listen more than you talk, and be thinking around solutions, but not solutions that you do, but that they can do. Being right shuts down learning. So you want to keep the curiosity open. And, if there's tension, growth sits inside tension. There was, I think only Nikki and such were on. I have to do a difficult conversation later tonight. I already know the tension is palpable. So I am ready and I know that I'm going to grow from it. And so is the person that I am going to be talking to. If it feels uncomfortable, try to stay with it. It will subside. It's a simulation. So we're going to try to do these in 10 minutes increments, I should say, intervals. That was a little mashup of a word. And then we'll probably give a little bit more than 5 minutes for feedback because we're a little smaller of a group. But stay in the role, kind of respect the process. Let's focus on learning. Be very clear as best you can. And if you didn't prepare, don't worry. It's okay. Just stay in it. It is the scenarios that I had you do in the pre-work are basically the scenarios that we're going to do. So there were some kind of setting your brain into the right spotlight. So I'm going to spotlight you, just the two of you. So I'm going to take the presentation down. We're going to put both of you up on the screen and everybody observes. Just a little bit reminder, any questions before we kind of go into this? If you've got your tools, if you've got your scenarios, for when you're observing, your role is not passive. You are actively looking for coaching behaviors or missed opportunities, emotional cues that maybe the leader didn't recognize. And where are the moments that changed in the energy of the conversation? Because we want to be ready to give specific feedback, not just general impressions. The idea here is to give support and help bring awareness where there might have been a miss. Okay, I think we're good here. You got the observer scorecard. Oh, go back. So this is going to be our pairings. Leader and employee. So you can see that, you don't know the scenario you're about to get set up with as a leader. And this will just give you an opportunity to see various different scenarios. Any questions? Because what I would like to do is just give you 5 minutes or so to just re-look at your scenario, especially you, Jenna. Because you're going to be my first actor, and ensure that you guys are ready to go for the first one. So I'll give you, has everybody got everything kind of set up? I'll give you 5 minutes, get yourself all organized. Jenna, you give me the thumbs up when you're ready. Okay. All right. So Jen and Jenna, you are up.
Doesn't Jen need to know?
Nope.
Okay.
That's the whole idea. We don't want the leader to know what the scenario is. You're coming in and you're going to basically be like, okay, here's my problem.
Okay.
Hey, Jenna, how are you?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. How's your week been?
So I mean, it's been okay, it's been fine. There's just been a couple of issues. So it's been picked up by some people in the team that maybe like my performance hasn't been as good recently. So I just wanted to raise that to you, but let you know like I'm managing it and everything's fine.
Oh, wow, that sounds really hard. How are you feeling about that?
Yeah, like okay, like obviously slightly disappointed that it's come to that stage, but again, like I've kind of like I'm glad it's been raised so I can like sort it out and just deal with everything.
Are you able to share some of the examples that you've been given?
So I guess like some of my work hasn't been as high quality or as detailed as it normally is. And then a couple of things have been late, which has, yeah, I guess impacted the team slightly.
And how do you feel about that feedback?
Yeah, not great, obviously, but it's given me the right sort of direction to go in.
Do you think that the feedback is fair?
Oh, sorry, I'm just really tired. Yeah, I think it's fair, but yeah, it's completely fair.
Okay, because that feels quite like out of character for you. Um, is there anything kind of going on for you at the moment that might have impacted on your performance?
Um, I've got some personal stuff going on that has been quite stressful. I was hoping it like wouldn't affect my work, so I wouldn't have to bring it up. But it obviously has a little.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. That sounds like you've got some difficult stuff going on. You're welcome to share and explore what's going on for you at home. If you'd rather not, then that's entirely for you. That's kind of your personal situation. Have you thought about ways in which you could try and separate work from home?
Yeah, I guess I can share. So, like a family member of mine has been really unwell, and I've been like stepping up to help in their care quite a lot. I didn't think it would be as hard as it is, and it's like having to wake up a few times in the night. So I'm just obviously it's affecting my sleep, and I'm just really quite tired. And yeah, and it's just like the emotional and the stress of it, obviously, because they're not well. Because that's what's been going on. I've been thinking of how I could separate it, but I'm not that sure. Maybe like some more flexibility over working from home um would be useful.
And have you got any support at home with the caring that you're doing?
Yeah, there's other family members that are doing some stuff, but I'm just sort of taking a lead role in that.
Okay, but do you feel comfortable that you've got enough support to make home manageable and okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So I heard you say um, some more flexibility at work might be helpful for you. That's definitely something that we can talk about. There's definitely something that we could have a look at. We can have a look at. Is there are there any other options that you think might be useful or helpful for you at the moment?
I don't want to like miss deadlines, but if there could be maybe some understanding over when it's not possible to get them in, and maybe some extensions there. I don't know if it's worth talking to the wider team and like getting some understanding there.
What do you that's entirely up to you as to whether you kind of want to share what's going on for you at the moment. But I guess from your perspective, what would be the ideal situation for you at the moment?
Um, so I think the ideal situation would be, yeah, I think like working from home would be really useful so I can like get more sleep in. Um, and then if I can have a look at like how long tasks are supposed to take and like sort of reconfigure that with my new like working pattern and home expectations.
Okay. Yeah, because I think it's kind of important to think about and to kind of look at what you're able to control and what you can influence. So it sounds like you were saying you want to kind of have a look at everything that you've got on your to-do list at the moment and reassess timescales. Did I hear that right?
Yeah, yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. So we can definitely have that conversation as well. Is there anything else you think that might be kind of useful for you at the moment, or anything else that might ease the pressure?
Nothing comes to mind at the moment, but yeah, it's great knowing that I could think about it and come to you if something else comes up.
Okay. So what I understand, we want to have a conversation about working from home and how often are you in the office at the moment?
Like 3 days a week.
Okay, okay. And so in terms of like next steps, what would be manageable for you at the moment? And sort of is there any sort of kind of time scale on that? Or do you want to leave that a bit open-ended at the minute?
Um, can we leave that a bit open-ended at the moment? Maybe if I can start coming in once a week from like next week, but then everything else like a further conversation.
Yeah, from my perspective,
Mhm.
that no problem there at all. Just I guess to think about what impact that might have on kind of working with other people.
Mhm.
So kind of have a think about what you might need to do in respect of kind of managing that change of location. Um,
Sure.
um, what else? What else do you need to do to kind of make all this work for you?
Um, I don't know at the moment, to be honest. But I think that for now, that's a really good start. That would be really useful.
Okay, okay. So we talked about your timescales and your deadlines.
Mhm.
So there's something to think about there. What do you think next steps would, from that perspective, could be?
I think I can, because there's a few deadlines coming up. There's a few external which obviously take the priority, but there's a few internal which are sort of set by us. If I could talk to those teams and like move them back a bit and just look at how much work is in there, um, then I can set up something that's more realistic.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. No problem. For me with that either. Are there any kind of particular barriers you think that are going to, or any challenges that are going to kind of stop you at the moment?
Um, so at the moment, I think, like you said, how my coming in once a week might affect the team. There are a few meetings that are better to have in person, but I might look at rearranging them onto the day that I'm in. So all of those things can be sorted on that day and like rearranging my work week a bit.
Okay, that sounds really positive,
Mhm.
actually. And then because if that kind of works for you, um, and then sort of doesn't sort of cause any issues elsewhere. Um, is there anything else that I could do or that we could do as an organisation to support you at the moment?
No, I don't think so. I think it's really useful that you are aware, and just that I am able to come to you and then like let you know if there's anything else.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So so it sounds like to me we've got a plan in place, which is that from next week you'll work from home 1 day a week, and we'll check in maybe in a few weeks' time and see where you are with that and whether we need to kind of review that at all. You're going to go away and have a look at all of your projects and work out timelines and deadlines. You've said that you'll have some conversations with you've said that you'll prioritize external deadlines, but you'll potentially have some conversations with internal colleagues. So let me know if there's anything that I can do to support you in that process. And you've also said that you're going to have a look at kind of rearranging your schedule to try and get as many face-to-face meetings in when you're in the office to kind of manage your workload easier. Okay. Okay. Well, I'm glad that we've managed to kind of get those things in place today. Hopefully, that will provide you with a bit of support going forward. I'm really sorry to hear that you're having kind of such a tough time at home. We'll check in again in a few days and see how you're doing, but I'm here and I'm available if there's anything that you need.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Good. Okay, let me share the screen because I want to go through the debrief. Okay, so observers. What did you notice? You can use your observer rubric if you want.
I think,
Okay.
I would say that Jen was really good at the like active listening and leading with compassion and empathy. Kind of like at the start and being kind of like letting the space for Jenna to like be able to talk about what was bothering her and then be able to talk about like once she felt more comfortable and more safe, be able to talk about the stuff that's going at home. And I think it was really good how Jen closed it with like the actionable feedback so that Jenna just wouldn't walk out from this meeting being like, oh yeah, we had a really nice chat, but nothing's changed, which can definitely happen with this kind of instance where they'd be like, yeah, she's lovely, but like it's all remained the same. So I thought that was really good.
Awesome. What else? What else were some of the strengths that you saw? Anybody?
Yeah, so obviously the collective ownership of the solution, essentially, or the trial solution. So ensuring that Jenna, the onus was very much in part on Jenna to help design essentially the way forward by having her discussions with her colleagues, etc., by mapping out what her deadlines were. In other words, not simply saying, yeah, you can take this time or you can be at home for this, but rather this is how you will have a role in designing how we can make this work.
What else?
I thought she definitely led with empathy and compassion in terms of acknowledging the way Jen was feeling, the fact that it was really tough time at home. As I said, creating a space for her to be able to let her in and tell her what's happening and how it's impacting her work. So yeah, that was quite good. And she was quite curious about, what's happening. How did she feel about the fact that her performance was actually picked up by other colleagues? So she came forward with that because obviously the employer was quite worried about that, but just asking how she felt about hearing that news.
Did we see any specific tools that showed up?
I feel like the kind of holding space and being kind of comfortable with silence and kind of keeping on it until you get to the root of the problem, which is, it was fairly obviously like not what was initially presented was the key. Like I think kind of quite, there's often like not one magic question that unlocks it, but as long as you are a trusted person, just kind of being able to kind of, you know, leave enough space so that people can kind of fill in the real background, like works and works here.
So you didn't feel like there was one specific question. It was more just overall. Did anybody see, like, was there a specific question that helped to shift things?
It kind of felt that the environment was such that Jenna was happy to open up to Jen. So not necessarily a specific question that shifted things.
Okay. So I want to just get some information from the leader. What felt hardest, Jen?
Apart from all of it.
There you go.
So what was really difficult, I've literally got my questions in front of me to put it up. What am I going to ask next? So what was really difficult was to focus on what Jenna was actually saying rather than and then stop and then think, okay, what's kind of like the next most sensible, most helpful question to ask, rather than kind of hearing the first half of what's come out of Jenna's mouth and then just diving to kind of right, okay, right, she's talking about that. What can I ask next? So that was quite difficult. And it was also quite challenging because obviously I wanted to ask, it felt like I was just asking lots of questions. But I didn't want to get to a point where I made any suggestions. So it was also kind of challenging to kind of ask questions maybe in a slightly different way to explore some of the options a bit more. So from my perspective, I've no issue with working from home more often because clearly, I mean, Jenna did a very good job of being tired. And I did kind of say once, but I perhaps didn't reinforce enough that actually, Jenna being picked up for poor work is really out of character. So potentially I could have done a little bit more reinforcement of, um, skill, and confidence in Jenna, kind of throughout the conversation. So that um, was sort of kind of sat there, but it was about sort of trying to help sort of think that I have no issue with, yep, absolutely, we can reset some deadlines. Probably there's some fixed stuff that we can't move, but anything that we can move. But I was trying to sort of think about what's going to get in the way of that and what's going to make that difficult. Because I don't mind if you work from home more, and I don't mind if you change your deadlines, but other people might. And actually, Jenna came up with, well, okay, well, actually, what I'll try and do is I'll shift my diary around and do the face to face. So that felt like that was quite a good outcome.
Nice. All right, Jenna, your turn. I want to find out. Did you feel heard?
Yeah, I think Jen did a really good job of being like empathetic and not like I think some people might zone in on like the issue that work wasn't going so well, but actually Jen went straight to like the underlying causes and like what's sort of going on with you and is there anything you want to talk about?
Was there, when she asked the question about who else was there to help out, was there anything specific that was running through your mind?
Yeah, like I hadn't prepared my backstory well enough. But, but yeah, I was like, oh, actually, is there anyone else that could help? But yeah, that just made me feel really like seen, like I could talk to Jen about other stuff, and like it was like she really cared about my actual well-being rather than the work.
Yeah. Okay. So in general, before the next spotlight, what have you learned as a group, whether you're the active people or the observers, about coaching? So, what did we see from the change program that showed up here? And like, it seemed like this was a lot about the compassion and the hearing, the actionable feedback, the empowerment was kind of there. There was good emotional intelligence. But what did this spotlight teach you about your leadership and how to handle it? And here's where I would love to hear, what would you have done differently as a leader?
Question. Tough question, Carol. There was one question there's only one question that slightly caused me to wince and to be interested in people's perspectives on it, which was how do you separate work from home? And I think you moved on from that question really quickly, Jen, which was probably good. And I think you might have slightly winced once you'd asked it, but I don't know. I'd be interested in people's perspectives on that question, because it's obviously the work-life balance is obviously at the heart of the management exercise. But I always think about that in terms of balance rather than separation in a way. Sorry, Carol, this is not answering your question, but it is what.
Oh, good. No, you are. You're giving your what the emotional trigger was for you when that question was asked. So that's good. Does anybody, as leaders, did the business component run through your mind at all? Was there ever a concern around the impact of shifting the timelines?
Sorry, ask that question again, Carol.
Was there ever a concern that the result of the conversation was less time in the office? What would be the impact of not staying on the timelines? So to your point, James, around the balancing between the two, what, if any, concern would you as leaders in retrospect think, how is this going to impact? What's the ripple?
So I didn't have that concern because I thought Jen did a good job in making this a short-term plan, a suck it and see plan, rather than a longer-term commitment of any sort. At least that's the way that I interpreted it. In other words, let's see whether this can work better. Let's put some onus on you in that respect as well. But we'll come back to this in fairly short term to figure out whether or not it is indeed working better for both you and the organisation. So I thought that was reasonably well corralled.
Yeah, I think kind of the point is kind of you don't have to be perfect, but you have to be kind of brave enough to try, right? I mean, I think kind of also that question I didn't think was great, but in the kind of context of the kind of whole thing, it doesn't really matter. Kind of likewise, you might come up with a solution which kind of isn't perfect, but it's obviously kind of better than somebody being in the office but with a kind of unaddressed problem.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, given the situation, what you could have is Jenna saying, actually, do you know what? I need to have, a bit of a sabbatical. Then you end up, or I'll need to leave the post. You'll end up having nobody doing the job. In this way, her working from home doesn't necessarily mean that she's not doing the work. It might mean there's less face-to-face, which she didn't commit to trying to sort out, seeing what the external deadlines were. So in a way, it's that support for the employee. What can we do just to make sure that your home life is a little bit easier? And so is work. So as James said, it provides you with that balance. And it's a staff well-being issue, isn't it?
Okay. All right. Let's get this screen back up. Who's next? Come on, go backwards one computer. There we go. All right. Up next, Rob is the leader, and Augustina will be the employee. So I'm going to remove the pins here, and I'm going to put new pins up. Jenna. Add in Augustina. You might be in there, James, because the two of you have kept the shared camera. So just sit there quietly, please. Okay, so for those who are observers, let's get our pieces of paper ready. And Augustina, whenever you're ready, you go ahead and get started.
Oh.
Take a moment if you want to just look at your scenario.
Yeah. Cool. Hi, Rob. How are you doing?
Thanks, Dana. How are you doing today?
Yeah, all good. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to meet with me today. Like, I know I called this meeting really kind of like late, and I know you've been really busy, so I really, really appreciate it. And yeah, how's your day going? Is it really busy?
It's pretty busy. That's fine. Like I've always got time for, it kind of sounds like it's important. So, what's on your mind?
I really appreciate that. It's not, I wouldn't say it's like massively important, you know what I mean? Like there's lots of things going on, and like yeah, I wouldn't say it's like massive important, but it's always nice to like have these chats, and you know what I mean? It's really good to like when there's lots of things going on to be able to chat with you and kind of like get an idea because we had the Easter break. How was your Easter break, by the way?
Yeah, it was lovely. We were up in Leeds with the in-laws. I'm guessing that's not why you brought me here, or kind of why you wanted to chat. So I'm just
Oh,
kind of
um,
interested now.
yeah, of course. Yeah, I just sorry, just I was just trying to check in. Um, yeah, I just think that like I wanted to have a chat because I just wanted to like first of all have a chat about like our like podcast and how that's going and like see what you thought, and we've got that going on, and it's going really well. Like you don't need to worry about it, like it's all in hand. I've got it. We're working across different teams, but like we had the first couple teams, like the first couple meetings last week about it, and then the timeline shifted, and it was gonna go. Did they tell you that it was gonna go on the 13th first, and then it moved to the 17th? It might now be the 22nd. I'm not too sure. But I'll get on it, so you don't have to worry. But then, kind of like, yeah, Liza changed something else, and then Alex is on the website, and it's just been really interesting to kind of like see the different sides of it. And it's been a lot, but I've got it. And it's just been, yeah, it's just been it's been really interesting to see that. And then on top of that, I've been helping Charlene with that LGBT vets. That's going really well as well. You don't have to worry about it either. And we've gone out yesterday, I think, like email, socials, everything's done, everything's going okay. And then obviously I'm also helping Charlene with Palantir. Palantir's going okay. There's like 65, almost basically 65,000 people that have taken action, and Jamie's going to check for data, and that's also grand. And Barb's is helping building, the new hand raiser for Katrina for tomorrow. Yeah, it's just been a lot, but I'm kind of like hustling through it. And I just yeah, and also we've got the recruitment. How's the recruitment going?
I mean, there's quite a lot of things there, actually, like if you don't mind me saying. So, which should we kind of focus on kind of one of those first off, like maybe the Palantir podcast, because that's the one which you kind of mentioned first. Like, can you just give me like a little bit of an update on that? I know kind of you mentioned the timelines on that, but I'd just be really interested to hear kind of from your point of view, like what's been happening over the last few days and kind of how you're you're feeling about that.
Yeah, of course. Um, so it's going okay, first of all. It's going great. We're just trying to get everybody on the same page, which is good. And obviously, it's been a lot, but with like, the timeline shifting and the different teams moving things, it's going okay. We are kind of like finalizing all the episodes, and Matt's doing a really, really good job on the ROR. So I don't know if you saw, but like 3 people replied. Swindles just replied to us, which is really exciting because we did an Instagram post about it last week, so like it's kind of cool. And we're getting that done, and we're kind of like working towards the end. And I'm not even sure if this is the right thing to bring up or if it's the right thing to like be talking about first, but I just wanted to like get it past you, make sure that you were aware and we were like chatting through the stuff. Um, and yeah, the podcast is gonna go okay. It's just we just need to figure out if it's the right time for it to go out, and we just need to figure out if it's like I don't know how to put this, but like there's just lots going on with like all the different members. There's sometimes a bit like too many cooks. You know what I mean? Sometimes the GLP that can happen where everybody's really lovely and everybody wants to help, and then there's too many people helping and you know what to do. But yeah, that's kind of how that is going. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you mind if we just kind of explore this a bit more? And like this is just kind of me and you here, so like hopefully you can fully trust me. And if there's kind of anything which you don't want to like kind of leave this room, that's absolutely fine. Like I won't kind of pass any of that on. But if you don't mind me saying, like you do seem a bit kind of anxious about this, at least it kind of say, I know kind of you said kind of things sound okay, but just as quite a direct comment, I don't think you would call a meeting with me just to tell me that everything is going okay, right? So can we just like dig into that a bit? Kind of what is it about this that kind of maybe isn't going to go quite so well as it might do?
Um, yeah, of course. Again, I'm not even sure if this, or maybe I shouldn't have called a meeting, and then that's fully my bad. I'm sorry if I'm wasting your time. Like I didn't mean that at all. Um, I'm just trying to kind of like understand, you know, I'm just basically trying to figure out like because we got the podcast and LGBT vets and the Easter break, which was great. I hope yours was great. You mentioned your in-laws, hope that was fine. And Palantir, and the recruitment's been great, and but it's a lot. And it's really sunny outside, and everybody's trying to be like outside with the sun because this country there's not much of it. So like it's just kind of like trying to figure out kind of like how everything plays together and kind of like and then as we were saying there's lots of people coming in. James really loves LGBT vets, so he's putting a lot of effort into that, which is then I don't know if I should be paying more attention to it. And then Katrina really cares about the far right and women hand raiser, and then Charlene's really on it on Palantir on the podcast, and then obviously Joe really cares about the podcast. So there's just like loads going on.
Okay. So how are you feeling overall about kind of the amount of work you've got at the moment and the number of different things that you're working on?
Um, um, Let me think. I don't know if I'd say I just kind of think it's been a lot, and I like yeah, it's been a lot, and I've been trying to like hold on to it, and maybe like I should have, and I'm just kind of like no, and I'm sorry if this is showing that like I'm not on it, but I'm really trying to be, but I yeah, I think it's a lot. It's just been a lot.
And is this something which you can only just started feeling that it's been, too much, or is this kind of something which you've maybe been like kind of feeling for a bit longer?
I'm not sure. I think, GLP is always really busy. So like it's a really weird one to try and understand when you're like busy and when you're like just busy. So I think there's a bit of like maybe I didn't feel that busy a couple weeks ago and I just feel really busy now, or maybe it's kind of one of those where you like, start piling Jenga blocks up and then they start like tumble and there's a lot. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah. And do you feel like it's the kind of sheer amount of work which is the issue, or the kind of number of different projects that you're kind of spreading yourself over, or kind of where do you feel that that kind of the main issue is there?
Mm, I don't know, because like again, I think I mentioned this before, but you know how everybody at GLP is like lovely, so everybody's really trying to be nice and like help and do stuff. But I think it's just sometimes like a lot, and I think because everybody's really nice, it's just quite hard to like understand where everything lies and kind of like what I should be doing for and with people. Um, yeah, so it just feels like there's kind of like lots of things coming at me at once.
Okay. And like what would be the best way to kind of help to deal with this? I mean, literally, if you just want to vent a bit, then that is, I'm kind of here for it. But if there's anything which kind of we can help you with, even if it's, kind of how can you deal with this, or is there kind of anything which kind of I could do, or the team could do? I mean, kind of what would most help you?
Um, I think that something that might be helpful is if we could get more clarity of like when things are going out and what the order are. I don't think the head of campaigns really knows what the order is. So I think her like mixture of like lots of things need to go out at once are kind of like I think it's making it all a bit like it's making it all a bit like and like then in my job I'm a bit like I don't know how to kind of like decide if that makes sense.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is that there's kind of lots of things coming to you, kind of possibly quite last minute, possibly kind of not with a lot of kind of obvious um, prioritization or kind of information about kind of what you should be best working on. Is that accurate?
Yeah, yeah, I think that would be accurate. Like, I think you're right, and I think that's the issue that like there's so many priorities happening at the same time that I kind of just don't know what the priority is anymore. And like, if everything's a priority, then what's
Nothing
a
is.
priority? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand. And I wonder if you got any examples of kind of where you felt this most strongly.
Mm. Yeah, I would say like in the past week, as I was saying, how like we had Easter break, which was lovely, but that means that suddenly everybody's on like 3-day weeks, which is a bit intense. And then, lots of more senior people have been on like recruitment, which is great because we need more people, but like suddenly like lots of orientation maybe doesn't happen. And then we've got the podcast breathing down our necks and we need to choose like all the stuff that needs to happen before it and we keep pushing the kind of like deadline for it. And I'm really worried that, SMT is gonna get upset by that. And then this week I also had to focus on, like lots of the socials going out and helping with Palantir and filming 2 videos and the LGBT vet side of things. And it's just all very like stop and go and lots of like just different things. I'm just like when I get to like my desk in the morning and I do my to-do list, there's just like a page of stuff that I just don't know where to start.
Okay. And what would be kind of most useful, like kind of for you, or or if, how how can we both work as a team to kind of um help to kind of solve that, or kind of help to make that better? Because I'm kind of really happy just to kind of talk to anyone and maybe just try and find a framework for this that works. But yeah, obviously, I'm very happy to be led by you in terms of like how can we best get there.
I think maybe if we could like in one of the huddles, like tomorrow morning, just like sit down and ask people for like what's the priority for the next like 2, 3 days. It doesn't have to be long term. I just need the next couple days. Then that would be really helpful for me to know exactly what to focus on for the next 2, 3 days. So maybe then that'll mean that like the amount of stuff will calm down and then it'll kind of go back to being more manageable. Will that be okay? And I'd like to support with that if that's okay. So I get it, Kittery.
Absolutely, yeah. Let's definitely kind of start with that, and then let's also going to try and make sure that we stick to the priorities as well.
Amazing. Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you so much. I think yeah, I came in quite like overwhelmed and quite like so that's really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, and if you can ever want to find some time just to talk through anything, then I'm always here.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you both. Okay, let's start with the group debrief. Let's get to the questions. Where are we? All right, from my observers, what did we notice? What tools showed up?
I think Agostina need an Oscar.
I
I completely lost it. What's going on? It's really difficult at that point because you've got someone who's talking a lot and there's lots going on, and part of me is thinking, well, this person's quite enthusiastic, but you can see that the person's overwhelmed. But I'm getting overwhelmed, and I don't want to interrupt you, but I kind of feel like I need to, otherwise I'll lose the will to live. How do you sort of balance that? That's my issue here.
Well, how do you think Rob handled it?
I think it did at the very beginning. It was, well, I don't think he called the meeting just to tell me everything that you're doing. And when he said that, I kind of thought, oh, that's very direct. I don't know if I would get my backup or not, type of thing. But I understand where it's coming from because I wouldn't want her to continue. I'd want to stop and say, okay, at the very beginning, what we're looking at, what we're trying to sort, and then you can go into a bit more detail because it is important. But I'm sitting and listening to a lot of things at 100 miles an hour, but I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be taking from it, and I'm probably missing important things.
Rob, it was really, I have to give kudos. I know that what you allowed to, and I don't know if you specifically saw that, but the level of emotion through all of that is telling in and of itself. So seriously, I agree with Nikki. Augustina, you deserve an Oscar. What made you stay present in the rambling?
Me?
No, Rob.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like we were going to get somewhere, so I felt there was kind of a point to it, and it was based enough in how kind of GLP actually operates that I found it quite interesting. But yeah, I mean, I was kind of wondering, like, do I interrupt? And I was kind of thinking, like, I'm going to try not to. Like at some point I might need to, but I'm going to try not to for now.
Were there any shifting questions for my observers? That's a question for the observers. Were there any shifting type questions?
There were a lot of questions. Sorry, go on, James.
And I was going to say that the questioning was probably most effective when Rob was putting the onus back on Agostina to identify, I guess the block and the Jenga tower that was the issue. I think earlier on, Rob, you kind of picked one of the blocks for Agostina and said, should we focus on that? Which just enabled her to ramble some more, I think. And then it got better when I guess easier for you when you're, as I say, putting the onus, letting her drill down to what was the thing that was really bugging her. Yeah, as opposed to nominating, as I say.
Jen, you were saying something.
Now I was just going to say, yeah, so the start might not have been perfect, but what Rob did kind of when we got to sort of the middle bit was actually then ask lots of focusing questions. I didn't hear a lot of I didn't hear a lot of reflecting back. Well, I hear that but there were a lot of right, okay, do you want to tell me some more about that? Right, okay. Shall we explore that a bit further? Right. So there was a although Agostina just didn't even stop for breath at certain points, there was a lot of it, there was like a really positive attempt to, yes, okay, let's focus in, yes, okay, let's dig into that, yes, okay, like what's underneath that. And he did eventually get her to stop saying, but everything's fine, when clearly everything is not fine.
Yeah. I mean, I felt the turning point was when he asked her about the level of work, and I felt like her speed came right down, and I was able to breathe then too, because you could see that she really slowed down and she started to really think about what was happening. That was a good one. Rob, thanks for saving us all.
So for Rob, what was the hardest?
Hardest bit was at the start where it was all just like, what's actually happening, kind of what's the way in. I did, yeah, kind of go down like a bit of a blind alley on the basis of, kind of the first thing that gets mentioned, maybe the most important, actually going to turn out not to be. Yeah, I mean, obviously kind of once you start getting somewhere, it's a bit easier. But yeah, just like trying to figure out what's actually going on can be the hardest bit.
You said you had a statement that you did more towards the earlier part of the conversation around, this is a safe space where you can trust and just open up. That's vulnerability. That's amazing, because it's trying to give her a space to feel less anxious potentially, because rambling is usually latent with anxious energy. Yeah, that was good. Did you find yourself wanting to fix anything?
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of trying to find like a good middle ground at the end where I was like, I can help you with this, but I want to be led by you as to kind of how much should I get involved in it. Um, but yeah, I mean, I I didn't necessarily want to fix the specific issues, but I did want to, yeah, I had to stop myself trying to kind of fix the prioritization and amount of work stuff, personally.
I did see you kind of bring up the one of the projects, which de facto the brain's going to say, oh my God, my boss thinks that's the most important one. But it did stop the rambling, and it would have allowed you to continue the conversation through each project. So there's a balance right there, right? Augustina?
Yeah.
What you felt?
I'm not gonna lie, but we're probably not here to talk, like you're probably not called a meeting to talk about Easter. It made me physically anxious. I just went like, even though it was like a jokey exercise, I was like, oh God, no, of course not.
It's a testament to how annoying you were already being.
And I was trying to be really annoying, but just like really rambly and like non-stop. But I think it was really good. I think when you were like Rob, when you were like, but it feels like you do have a bit of like. I think the question that like made me stop and think, and that I really liked was the whole like, okay, but is this new? Like, do you always feel like this, or is this like, are you really busy right now? Because I think that made it kind of be like, okay, wait, is this like a thing that's happening around? And then that forced me to like stop and have to think about an answer and and then that kind of like forced me to like, yeah, as Nikki said, kind of like dial it down. And I thought that was really, yeah, that was really helpful. But yeah, at the beginning made me anxious. I was like, oh God, I'm so sorry. But yeah, yeah.
There were a few things that, you towards the end there in trying to encourage ownership, you almost started to say, Rob, a what question. And instead, you shifted to a how question, which is akin to more problem solving as opposed to inventory of things. So, a what could lead to, given this situation, a what question could lead to her trying to go down everything. And when you went to a how question, it really helped her go towards solutions, and also increased awareness. So, bully for you on that one. I will say, just as a debrief for the whole group, um, the one skill that can calm anybody, whether it be rambling, whether it be personal problems, is the acknowledge and validate. So just if you need to kind of remember that one, that's just that active listening skill. Well, it sounds like, or what I heard was you did some of that, which is why I'm calling it out. I hear this, and then the validation is, given the size of your Jenga tower, I can see why you might look like you're a little, uneased or anxious or whatever. So it's that acknowledge and validate can also help calm, and open up that trust gate. So that was good. All right. So we could either we have 6 to do. Do we want to take a break, a little like 5-10 minute break right now, and then come do another 2 and then take a little break and then do the last 2? Or do we want to do one more and then take like a 15-minute break?
I'd like a break.
Okay.
That's
So
right now. I need to eat a banana.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with 6:30.
okay, so it's 6:30. I'll see everyone at 9:04. Sorry, I don't know what time it is there. It's 9:30 here, so I'll see everybody in like 9 minutes.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Hey,
How
Jane.
you doing?
We've been recorded. Going well. Thanks. You?
Oh, look, I'm okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm okay.
Okay. I mean, I'm not too sure about that response. Is there anything you want to share with me?
Well, look, you probably know anyway, right? What's on my mind? We got that report out, and then the internal feedback on that. I don't know. I mean, it just like it seemed to, all the good stuff that was focused on was kind of other people's work really, and I just thought that the negative emphasis was really just seemed to focus all on the stuff that, well, I don't know. I mean, just a couple of mistakes and the stuff that I had done.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that with me, James. You seem a little bit despondent. I mean, I could see
Well,
how.
I just don't think, I think, look, I was asked to do that at 4:30 on a Friday, and the data team, they were off on another bloody away day, and I guess I had some old information, and I didn't have any better information. I had no one. No one from campaigns was around. Kat, who had been handling this, she was off on a meditation retreat. And it's like, and like the draft was just, there was so much work to do on the language and everything. Like, checking the stats and everything was, I don't know. I only had it was 4:30 on Friday, and I just don't feel that I just don't feel that I felt, you know, that I was flying solo basically because I just didn't have support, and and I don't know. I mean, I you know, I guess I shouldn't have made those mistakes, but it just feels like the context has just been ignored here.
Yeah, I mean, James, as I said, thank you for sharing this with me. You're usually really, really good with the work that you do and always on time as well. And I could see that you really care about, the work that you've produced. And from what I'm hearing you saying is that you feel a bit disappointed, you seem a little bit down, that there were some issues in the reporting and you've been pulled up for that.
Well, look, it's just it was just so public as well, right? I would have thought, particularly given the pressure that I was put under, that someone might have come and talked to me about it before, sharing it with everybody, that, this was the problem.
Yeah, and I could see how that could be upsetting, you say, pulling up mistakes in a public forum. It could be a little bit frustrating. I completely understand that. Could you share with me a little bit about what those mistakes were and what led about to that?
Well, we were reporting to a donor on the success of the campaign, right? And that there's some data-driven bits to that, and there's some narrative bits to that, some editorial bits. I thought actually the editorial bits were really strong, and I thought I had so little time to work with what was a pretty poorly formed draft. But yeah, the data bits, it turned out that, as I say, I was working with some old information, and maybe I didn't, no one was around to help me check whether that was up to date.
Okay. It's not ideal. That's how the mistakes came out. But what do you think we could do next time, James, just to make sure that these issues are picked up before they are shared externally?
Well, if the organisation is going to give such a small amount of time to get this piece of work done, this was dumped on me, right? This was dumped on me because someone else was out, and other people were away and other people were busy, and I was just, as I say, I was just left to fly solo with something on a Friday afternoon, really short period of time to get it done. I just I don't think it's fair in that light to blame me for the fact that it, wasn't all perfect.
Yeah, I could see why that would make you feel a little bit disappointed in how that came out completely. In terms of making sure that we're across this for next time, obviously we need to provide this report again in the next quarter. What do you think should happen just to make sure that the accuracy has been checked and we also meet the timeline, making sure that we work around the different commitments of everyone who needs to feed into this report?
Well, yeah, it can't be left that late in the day, right? People who should be signing off on things should, need to be available when we've got to get something like this out. I think. I obviously don't mind working on something like this. It's a really good thing to do, but if you're left under time pressure and without support, then mistakes are going to happen.
Yeah, I completely get that. I think as a team, you know, we need to make sure that we get all the information that we need in order to get our work out. So
I
what
mean, I
can
think if you're going to go off on a meditation retreat as well, you should do some proper handover notes.
I completely get that, and I understand. From your point of view, what do you think you could do for the next quarter to make sure that we're ahead of that?
Well, I mean, you know, I guess, um, well, I guess, you know, maybe I could have seen this coming. I mean, I knew it had to go out. I guess it hadn't actually been decided who was going to do it. And maybe, you know, we could have collectively worked that out a bit earlier so there wasn't such time pressure. As I say, I think, you know, maybe the handover notes could have been better too. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess if I had reached out to the data team, they might have responded. I mean, you know, they were on an away day, but maybe, you know, maybe I could have done that.
Okay, so I mean that's, you know, in hindsight now, this given situation, what do you think specifically you could do for the next quarter to make sure we don't end up in this situation? What things could be put in place?
Well, I think we just need to have a longer runway for this, right? And so I just think that between companions and legal, I mean, those guys can never seem to agree on anything. I mean, I think we just make sure that we've got, you know, we've got it in the diary properly with clear responsibilities so that it doesn't, like it did, you know, like it, you know, everyone realized too late in the piece that you know, cat had gone away and therefore someone else would have to pick it up.
Yeah, I completely understand that, James. So there's lots of things that, you know, across the business we need to do to get it out. In terms of the way that you manage your workload and check the accuracy of work, what systems do you think you could put in place to improve accuracy?
Yeah, I mean, it would have been great to have had another pair of eyes on the document, but yeah, I mean, I guess I've learned that you know, your editorial can be really good, but it's not going to matter if your numbers are wrong, if your data's wrong. So maybe I should have put more front end focus on making sure that was right rather than, you know, doing a bunch of rewriting. But listen, I mean, I think like there's fixing that, but there's also like the way that it, you know, these things get called out. I mean, I just don't think this should have been called out publicly in the way that it was.
Okay. Could you do you mind sharing with me who called you out in the meeting about it?
Well, it was on the, I mean, it was on the Slack channel. You know, that the donor had said that they were really disappointed that these numbers weren't accurate because they come back and ask some questions and we'd have to correct them.
Okay, I'll have a look and I'll have a word. Obviously, I've said to you, I've always like the quality of your work. You've always been really good, really clear, always on time. So not quite sure why that happened, and I understand the situation around school staff not being around when you needed the work, and you're working with some old information. So there's definitely things that needs to be put in place for next time around to make sure that doesn't happen. Obviously, I don't want you to feel disconnected and think it's a reflection of your work and the value of what you add to the organization, because that really isn't the case. So I'll have a look and I'll speak to whoever it was that, you know, pulled this up in a public forum, because if there really was an issue, then ideally they should have come and spoken to you about it, because you're certainly one of our definite good members of staff that we would not want to feel this way within the organization. So, in terms of our next step,
Just want to
James,
be supported. I want to be supported when things go wrong as well as when things go right.
of course, definitely, and this is why I want to have that conversation just to find out why that happened and want you to understand, as I said, that the quality of your work has never been an issue for me or the organisation. So I want to find out why they did that. And I know you said the reasoning behind what was going on was because core staff weren't around, otherwise everything should have been okay. Apart from the way you're feeling, which obviously I said I'll have that conversation. Were there any other impact on the report being having issues with it? Is there anything that
Well, we've just, I know we've just lost a bit of credibility, that's all, but I don't know. I mean, I guess, we always learn, you always learn from mistakes and we'll make sure it doesn't happen next time, but sort of raise the bar for ourselves, I suppose. But no, I appreciate the response, Nikki, and as I say, I think it's just I didn't feel like we owned the problem together on this one.
So could you repeat that, James?
I just didn't feel like I felt like I was the guy got the sole blame on this one, which just didn't feel right to me because it felt like, I'd been put in a really difficult position.
Yeah, I understand. I completely understand, and I'll have a word about that. In terms of our next step, James, do you need any support from me or anybody else in order to fix the issues on the report?
Well, the report's done, so I think, and it's been corrected. So I think this is about support for next time. Thanks, Nikki, and just making sure that, I suppose not either me or any other member of the team is not in this situation where they get, stuck under pressure in this way, in a way which is just likely to result in work product that isn't all right.
Absolutely, and we're always a team, and if something's happening like this, I would rather know. I'm glad you came to me and told me about it. So I will have that conversation. So are we okay with what we're going to do in terms of making sure that we're ready for the next quarter's report?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think it merits a team discussion about how we can ensure collectively that this doesn't happen again.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, well, what we'll do in the next team meeting we'll have a look at all the things the deadlines we've got and map out how we're going to meet that and make sure we give ourselves a little bit more extra time of just checking the team calendars.
Thank you, Nikki.
All right, thanks.
All right, so let's go ahead and hit that debrief. It's time for our observers. What were the strengths? What did we see?
So one of the things that I thought Nikki did really well, because James was obviously quite pissed about this report, was she asked 2 questions about focusing on trying to get him to focus on the future and looking forward rather than continuing to focus on this report that has happened and has gone wrong. And the second time she asked the future focus to kind of look about like what happens next time, she worded that in a way that didn't place the blame on this report not being right on James, which helped him to start thinking about what could happen differently next time instead of just being cross about what happened this time. And also kind of waited and got him and let him do all of the venting and then got the conversation to go back in a future focused direction so that he then started to talk about, well, yeah, okay, and I suppose I could have asked. I could have reached out and I didn't. So kind of gave him the space to be really cross, kept nudging him in the kind of future looking direction, and eventually ended up with a conversation from, or with some acknowledgement from James that perhaps it wasn't all everybody else's fault, and that there were some things that he could improve as well.
What else? Did you see any specific tools, or was there a specific question that helped to shift? I saw him boomerang a little bit, so she had to kind of keep going back. But what did anybody else see? I'll chime in, Nikki. You did a lot of acknowledging and validating. That was really good. You really showed that you were actively listening, and you were validating a lot of what he was saying, without blame, or without pushing away everybody else's potential mistakes. That's one of the things I saw. Rob or Jenna or Augustina?
I think Nikki was really good at kind of like validating the anger, but without being like, yeah, James, you're right. Like when James went, well, if you were going to go on a retreat, you could have done better handover, something like that. I think Nikki was really good at being like, take the handover thing. Yep, understand why you'd be mad, instead of just being like, but what? So I think Nikki, you were really good at like keeping your composure and like validating some of the stuff he was saying and focusing on the stuff that you wanted to validate and not reacting to the other stuff that was a bit like more punchy, which I thought was really good.
Yeah, you kept very calm. Like that. So actually, let's go to you, Nikki. How'd that feel? What was the hardest?
I think I was focusing on, I wanted James to understand, obviously he's a valued member of the team. I didn't want him to feel completely disappointed because it'll, impact the rest of his work. But I kind of felt it didn't matter what I did, he was just miserable. And his facial expression wasn't going to change about the situation. But towards the end, I kind of felt like when we talked about next steps, I kind of ended by telling him what we should do rather than completely letting him own it. So whilst I tried not to give a solution, I felt at the end I just couldn't help myself.
And did you feel that, hindsight being 2020, was there a different question you now think you could have asked?
Maybe I should just stop before. When you said we just needed to look at it, because in my head I'm just thinking, okay, well, you should have had a look at the calendars and everything, and you're going on a retreat before you did all of this, and putting but sort of saying that, maybe I should just stop at, well, what we're going to do next, and just left it. I just wanted to give him a bit of commitment that I will look at things with him and the rest of the team, because, so in hindsight, I probably would have stopped before I got to that point.
Now I have so I'm going to move over to James. How did you feel over the whole thing?
Yeah, so I mean, it's what everybody said, really. So Nikki did a good job. I think if somebody is going to be in that bonnet, then giving them the runway to articulate that, including via various interruptions, etc., is strong. So I was given enough of a stage without Nikki trying to over direct, or certainly not any talking over, etc., to bitch and moan in the way that I wanted to. And then, as people have said, she didn't take the bait in terms of my effort to throw other people under the bus. She kept it focused. And then she moved it on after a respectable period of time to, so how do we fix this? And as you say, all the acknowledgement was strong. So, and Nikki's got a great voice for radio, so she's very calming.
So I have a curveball question for you. Do you think that if you were working with those people again, would you still have some concern, anger, and resentment?
So I think this is a situation where, as I saw the role, I mean, mistakes really were mine. And, obviously I wanted to contextualize that and I wanted to deflect and cast some blame elsewhere. But in reality, I knew that these mistakes were mistakes that I owned. So, you know, um, no, I didn't. Yeah, I think what your question is,
If put in the same situation again, do you feel that you would probably not show up as your best self because of this past experience?
no, I think I needed to get this off my chest in this situation, and Nikki gave me the ability to get it off my chest without making it a challenging conversation. And that's sort of what I needed. And so having got it off my chest and really come to terms thereby with the fact that I'd fucked up, but being able to vent about it a bit, I could reset, if that's the question. Yeah. In other words, I didn't feel unresolved at the end of it.
All right. Any last words from anybody? All right. So up next, we're going to have Augustina as the coach, and we have Jen as the employee. Whenever you're ready, Jen, give a go.
Yeah, I'm good.
Well,
Hey,
hi Jen, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, all good. How's your day going?
Yeah, not too bad. Same as usual, really.
Okay. Do you have a nice weekend?
Yeah, weekend was all right, actually. Yeah, it was good fun. Yeah, thank you. How was yours?
Yeah, it was good. It was good. Enjoying that there's a bit more sun now. So it's been nice.
Does make a difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, it makes such a big difference. It's just really nice. But yeah, anyway, how you doing? What should we chat through today?
Um, well, same from my perspective, really. I delivered that pretty big project that was looking like it was going to fail.
Mm.
And no one seems to have noticed.
Hmm.
The fact that it delivered really well. The fact that I basically redesigned it.
Yeah.
It was noted in the quarterly report, but not as part of my work. Someone else got noted. Someone else was kind of recognized for it. So, my contribution was relegated to a bullet point about support and but it doesn't really matter, does it, I suppose, because the fact is the project succeeded and we did what we needed to do, and it's kind of pretty standard fare, so I'm kind of used to it.
No, oh my God. Wait, let's take it by parts. First of all, it sounds like what you're going through is quite frustrating. I'm really sorry that you're like let's just unpack it a bit more because I'm really sorry that you're feeling this way and it sounds like something hasn't gone exactly how it should have. So could you tell me a bit more about the project and what happened and kind of like how the other person came in? Like I just really want to understand more.
Well, I just it, yeah, it does feel frustrating, like
Mhm.
um, I constantly get good performance reviews. All of the kind of the one-to-one stuff is all really kind of positive.
Mm.
Kind of like a really big project for us.
Yeah.
It was failing. The scope had, there'd been like a big load of scope creep. I 3 weeks, 4 weeks, worked late, redesigned the solution, delivered it on time, real improvements for kind of how we work. And Marcus was praised for, expertly managing the stakeholder expectations and delivering and driving the successful delivery. And I'm bulleted to tech support, it feels just a bit demotivating. And it's not the first time. A month ago, I led the systems upgrade, which was really complicated, planned the rollout, no downtime, worked really well, and yet, you know, someone else is receiving a departmental award and a special mention in the in the newsletter for presenting a high level strategy check on something completely different that had, like kind of like far lesser impact. And so, I don't know. Like, am I invisible? Is it favoritism? Am I not liked? Like, just, you know, don't know.
Yeah.
It feels like I'm kind of, I'm constantly delivering, and there's just nothing in return really.
Yeah. Oh, Jen, I'm really sorry you're feeling that way. Let's just start from like the simple stuff to the bigger stuff. Like on that you work late, have you logged your toilet? Have you made sure that you've got that time back for yourself?
I haven't actually, but I will.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to encourage you to take that time back for yourself. Like it seems you've got a lot on and I want to make sure that you've got that, that time back for yourself. But like on the other stuff, you've mentioned that it's happened again. Could I ask you like are there any similarities between the two cases? Or like I don't want to ask you why you think it's happened, but like what happened from your perspective would be really interesting because like I want to make sure that we get to the bottom of it.
I mean, apart from me being ignored in the
Mm.
in the process and the sort of the final delivery of the work, actually they're two pretty different projects working with different groups of people. So I'm struggling to see the similarity
Okay.
between those two pieces of work, other than
Yeah.
it was me doing them.
Yeah. Okay. That's
Now,
really interesting. You'll go ahead, sorry.
no, I was just going to say, I mean, I recognise that they're not exciting projects, they're not glamorous, they don't, they're not shiny, they're not kind of like gold and shiny, but
Hmm.
they are pretty important to how we function.
Yeah, 100%. Like 120%, Jen, the work that you're doing is the backbone of everything else that we're doing. And if that hasn't been validated enough, like let me take a second and just be like, it is. And I'm really sorry that it hasn't felt from other places. And I just want to make sure that together we get to a point today where we can at least get the first at the beginning of figuring it out why you don't feel it from the rest of the organization because you should. And like I get that Marcus speaks really loudly and that's good for him, but he shouldn't be taking your credit. So we're gonna work through it. And I guess in the spirit of that, I'd love to ask you like, you know, how let me think about this like in a way, but like what are the things that are making you feel this way? So when you notice that, there's something going on with that, why do you feel like nobody's noticing your work? Is it just because of the kind of like awards that Marcus got, or is it I want to get to the bottom of like both the public side of things, but also how you're feeling?
Yeah, so, like Project Titan was huge and it was failing. You know, it
Mm.
hadn't been managed properly, and I stepped in and I did the work, and it was delivered on time and really effectively, and someone else got, you know, got the praise for it.
Yeah.
Um, you know, before that, I was working on something really complicated, you know, like I say, not kind of glamorous and nothing kind of shiny and golden, but really complicated work that you know kind of really helped the organization. And someone else at that point got a special mention for doing something else that was just so far less impactful. And then the
Mm.
final straw, and I guess, you know, I shouldn't really know this, but I do because I've seen it, but I've seen the promotions list for quarter one. And not only was I not on it, but
Mm.
two people who I am constantly clearing up after were.
Yeah, that's really unfair.
Like, you know, and yeah, you know, they're loud and they shout about stuff. But I am, you
Mm.
know, I am reliable, I am successful, I work really hard in the background, and you know, like I'm not looking for like a parade, but
Yeah.
the pattern is clear. You know,
Yeah.
you know, the favoritism is clear.
Yeah, and you mentioned the kind of like the pattern skill, and I'd like to ask you because like hopefully you have a way to kind of like that you want to move forward that you think we could start looking at how to fix it. But like, how could we fix this, or what would make the situation better for you? What would you like us to tackle first?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm, you know, I'm not allowed person. You know, I'm not going to find it comfortable to shout from the rooftops about what I've done, you know, over the top of everybody
Mm.
else. Um, I do feel frustrated. You know, I've been here for 5 years now, and you know, I guess I feel like I need to know whether the effort that I'm putting in is still worth the personal cost to me. Like, you know, part of me is happy to do that, but part of me is like I get nothing in return.
Yeah, that must be really hard, Jen. I'm really sorry, and I'm also really glad that you're bringing this up so we can work through it together and we can kind of like find a space where you feel comfortable and safe and happy in your work. Because again, on behalf of like myself, as you know, your team and lead and the organization, you're doing incredible work, and I want to make sure that that's replicated in how you're feeling. And I can see that right now it's not. Um, so maybe we could go through a bit of a framework to try and see where the things are falling off kind of like where the wheels are falling off the bus, and bear with me with this, but kind of like, can we first look at like what's going well, what's working, you know, what's the instances where you're like, yeah, I feel good about this. I feel seen and respected, and like my job's like valued.
I don't.
Not
What's
at all, like at all,
Well,
never.
I mean, you know, like, you know, like you're great. You say, you know, we meet
Mm,
regularly. You know, I definitely feel that you value what I do. Um,
mm.
but I don't get a sense that the organization does. I'm in the
Okay.
same job doing more work, harder work, more complicated work.
Mm.
There's been no development, no support, no investment. I just, you know, same old, and I just watch everybody around me doing bigger and better.
Okay, I hear you. I fully hear you. So if we look at what's working, maybe our relationship is working, but the rest of the kind of like feedback loop system from the organization to you is broken at the moment. It's just not working. Is that what you'd say that's valid and that's kind of like reflective of what you just said?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair
Okay.
assessment. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And if we look at maybe improvements that we could put in together, like things that would make you feel, and I know this is really vague, so like let's think about it in like anything and everything. Don't think about it on like things that would actually, we can make happen tomorrow, but we can look at everything. Like what improvements could we put in to make you feel more seen and more valued?
I don't know. I guess for me it's about having something to aim towards. Like I
Mhm.
say, I'm not sulking because there isn't a, like a fanfare. when I hand something in, I'm here, I'm paid, I'm supposed to work
Yeah.
in return for that. But I guess it would feel good to have something to be aiming for, to have something to be working towards, like that's bigger and more um kind of more varied than just my job.
Mhm. That sounds good. So we're looking at improvement. We're looking at, things to aim for, maybe longer term projects, something that is yours and that you can kind of like work with. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, it does. It
Okay.
does. Yeah.
Okay, so if we look at like, because I want to make sure that you leave today, like not just feeling like you've told me, you've handed me a hot potato and we're withholding it, but I really want us to leave today with like next steps and actionable things and making sure that, you feel that we're both looking into this because we are going to. And I just want to also pick you up, like, I don't think you're sulking, Jen. I don't. Like, I think you're expressing something that is really fair. And I would feel as frustrated as you. So like it's really valid, and I don't want you to use like, obviously, you can use whatever words you want because you're a grown up, but like don't put yourself down. Like what you're feeling is really, really valid. And so just like next steps wise, we'll, from what you're saying, it's that like finding something for you to aim for, finding something for you to work on that's longer term. Is there anything else that you would add to those next steps? That could be for you, could be for myself as well, to make sure that we get you to a better place slowly but surely.
Well, I mean, I feel like I've proven that I'm capable. So I guess the opportunity to work on more strategic projects, the opportunity to have a bit more autonomy, rather than just deliver this, deliver this, that kind of feels like that would be something for me to kind of grow into and develop towards. That might be kind of quite interesting. And I guess being involved in those sorts of projects might mean I get noticed more without me having to jump up and down and
Yeah.
wave my hands about, which I don't really want to do that.
No, and I fully hear you. You shouldn't have to. So let's say like I'm committing to then having a look at, how I can tackle this from my level and having different discussions and seeing what kind of like how we make a better environment for you to work in. What steps would you commit to for like before one-to-one next week, so they don't have to be massive, but what kind of next steps would you feel like you can commit to for next week to kind of like start moving this along for you?
Uh, well, I mean, I have been thinking about kind of some of the ways in which I would like to develop myself. So I guess maybe I could go away and see if I could find some courses or, something that might help develop my skills or kind of stretch my thinking. So I'm sure I could kind of, find time to do that this week.
That sounds amazing. And then we can, you can take them to HR and we can take them together and we will make sure to get those kind of like settled in for you. But I think hopefully by us tackling it together from different sides, we'll get to a place where you feel more comfortable and more valued because again, I can't stress this enough. You are really valued, Jen, and we really want to make sure that you feel that way. And it's not just about me saying it, it's about you feeling it. So I really want us to get there together. Does that sound okay? Do you think those
Yeah,
sound okay?
like it does, and I do trust you. I have less faith in the wider organization, but let's see.
Look, I hear ya. I'm not gonna promise you something that I can't right now, and I hear your concerns, and I'm not gonna pretend that they're not there. So all I can say is I commit to working together to get through them, and in a week we'll see where we are.
Okay,
Cool.
cool. Yeah, all right. Thank you.
No worries. Have a good rest of your day.
All righty. So let's go ahead and start with our debrief from the group. Oh, lost you right there. A little prompt.
So I'll lead off and say, yeah, very strong validation there. I think, Agustina, in your validation, you occasionally bled into indulging Jen, in particular, accepting that the promotions thing was unfair. and that Marcus was a dick. Probably leading into putting the organization, not protecting the organization in the way that Nikki did with me, I think, which was not to indulge my desire to throw other people under the bus. But the validation was very strong. And you started with a very practical point about toil, etc., which was actually quite a good way to diffuse where Jen had got to and say, here's something that you should do for yourself. And then, so that was nice, I thought. But yeah. There's always the tricky thing, isn't it? Is to acknowledge without indulging. I think that's the hard thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I heard the validation, but I may have missed it. What I didn't hear was Agostina as the line manager expressing her gratitude for the work that Jen had picked up. I may have missed it. Because the whole thing is that she's doing work that no one's noticing, but you're telling her that she's valued, but you've not said, well, I just want you to know. So that's sort of your side of it to help that conversation along.
I mean, from my perspective.
Wait a minute, we're going to get to you.
I can't help myself, Carol. I just can't.
She's like, wait a minute, I want to come in here. I want to tell you what I felt. Jenna or Rob, did you guys have any observations?
I thought the listening was really good, and there were a lot of clarifying questions to get to the root of what they were feeling.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think it's, kind of the key thing with a lot of these things is just getting to the kind of underlying issue. And obviously kind of the most recent project is quite a trenchant issue, but then they're going past that and just saying, well, exploring, are you feeling kind of systematically undervalued? Kind of where does that come from? What do we do about it? I think it's a kind of real prize in it, which again is just space to see where the conversation goes.
Nice. That's a good call out, Rob. Yeah, what's the deeper emotion, if you will? It's interesting how you skirted the issue when Jen said, well, I've seen the promotion list, and there's people on there that I'm doing the work for. And that one to me would have just been like an anvil. So let's go to you, though, Augustina.
Yeah. I think James is right on the money, where I find the kind of limit between validating someone and making them feel heard and the moment where I should not indulge it sometimes quite hard. So I think that I might have gone a bit overboard and they're like, oh my God, what do you mean? You're great. And that could have been better. Yeah, I think so. I think it was quite hard. I think what I found quite hard is that I agreed with Jen and I was like, yeah, dude, that's fucking, that sucks. You're getting fucked over.
The union reckon you came out.
You know what I mean? I was like, yeah, you're getting fucked over. Yeah. We should, where's Marcus? Where's Marcus's manager? So I found it quite hard to not instantly go into that mode where I think I try to do it, but not. Yeah. So I instantly went into a bit of a manager as well, being like, I got you. You're my team. You're getting fucked over. I got you. We'll fix it. So I kept trying to knock. My instinct was to try and fix it for her and be like, I'm gonna talk to Marcus's line manager and do this. And then I kept stopping myself and be like, so what do you think we should do? And trying to use the win method to be okay, what, so to basically stop myself from myself.
All right, Jen, now you get spotlight.
So I definitely felt heard and I definitely felt supported. And there was a lot of validation that, I'm not sulking. There's some justification in kind of why I'm miffed in the moment. the opening, like, oh my God, have you booked your toil, was, like, I think as James kind of pointed out, that was kind of like quite a good, well, here's something concrete that I can give you. Like, well, you shouldn't have, okay, that's, you've worked all that extra. Have you taken steps to take that back? So I felt supported. I felt valued. My concern is that there's a potential that I've walked out of that meeting thinking, well, hey, I can look up any development course that I want, and my line manager's just told me I can have it. So, there's that sort of there was sort of that element of it where I would be like, sort of kind of worried that staff members, gosh, all the ills are going to be fixed. And I did feel a bit frustrated that the fact that I was picking up work for other people didn't get I didn't feel that was noticed as much as my work isn't being noticed, but actually not only is my work not being noticed, but actually I'm sweeping up after other people, and those people are being noticed. So there was that sort of kind of less of a recognition of the sweeping up and what's going to happen to those two. Now, what's going to happen to the two that I am sweeping up after?
Got it. So maybe a follow-up from Augustina would be, let me look at the overall workload and maybe think about how I could redistribute it or okay.
Get rid of those two losers. Yeah.
Get those losers out of there. All right. Any last yeah.
I was just going to say, I did feel like you were maybe missing feedback in the moment, Jen, because you'd obviously waited to the end of this project to see what to get the big positive feedback, and that hadn't been there, and that felt like a void. But that sort of suggested that maybe one-to-ones along the way were going to be important, because you were surprised when perhaps you might not have been had there been sort of more regular feedback instituted.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, James, you're going to be up now. You are the coach, you're the leader, and you have Rob as your employee. Whenever you're ready, Rob, you can start.
Hey, James. How you doing today?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. It's it's obviously like quite a bit kind of going on at the moment, but yeah, some kind of interesting stuff going on.
Okay. Is there anything you want to tell me about in particular?
Yeah, I mean it would be really useful just to get your guidance on this kind of microsite thing, which I've been working on, because like it just feels like what is being asked for basically can't be done. Because I've tried like all the ways in which you could possibly do it, and I just think that like it's fundamentally not possible. I think people don't really understand what they're asking for and kind of what the limitations are. So I just, yeah, I kind of feel like I've tried everything. It's not a technical problem at this point. It's just a question of like, what do we do? Do we not do it? Do we despec it? Do we like try and get this company to understand that what they're asking for just kind of can't be done? Like, what do we do?
Yeah, that sounds frustrating. So is this I mean, would you say that this is a problem with the technical capability to do it, or would you say that there's just a kind of mismatch between the expectation of what it will be and what it can be?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's kind of more of the latter one, right? Like, we've gone out, we've said, like we want to do like a Good Law Nation website, we want to build something. Here's like a blank check. Go and and design basically kind of what you want. Imagine like some amazing AI powered thing. We're going to go away and going to build it for you. without really getting me involved, and then like kind of dropping me on it and saying, all right, just going to go away and you know and build it as one person, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of feel like I've got as far as I can. Yeah, I think I'm kind of escalating it to because I think, yeah, like, what do you think I should do? Or can you just, going to go in and tell them, like, look, we promise you the world, but we're not actually going to be able to do it. Come up with something sensible.
Yeah. Have you chatted through with the rest of the tech team? What are other
Yeah,
people's thoughts in the team on it?
yeah, no, we tried everything. Yeah, like I say, yeah, we've run through this all kind of multiple times. Any way that we can possibly do it, we've tried to do it.
Yeah. So I suppose that one thing we could do is go back to the brief, right, and look again at what the expectation is. In other words, what people are hoping that this can achieve.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if we can properly tell these people who have asked for it, yeah, I think kind of the issue is they don't really understand what they're asking for. Like they're not technical people; they just think like you can magic something up. So I think
Yeah.
that's fundamentally one of the issues.
So yeah, maybe we need to think about a grid where what we think are the expectations based on the brief are in terms of what it can do and will achieve, and then maybe sit next to that in very short terms why you think it would fall short. Because I guess one question might be whether, we might be able to get to first, might not be able to get to first prize, but is there a second prize we can salvage out of this? And if so, what do we think that is?
I think there's going to have to be a second prize. I mean, I think, yeah, like happy to kind of build it out as a grid, but I don't think it necessarily going to change us a fundamental question, which is we've somehow agreed to an unbuildable thing. We can build as many grids as we want to. But yeah, I mean, I think like if you think that, yeah, can we just build something and tell them, here you go, and you're kind of happy to own that, then yeah, fine.
Yeah, I guess I probably don't think that. I think it sounds like this is time to put the periscope up and let people know where we're getting to, and what's getting in the way, I suppose. Because we've got to think, I suppose, where are we in terms of spend on budget compared to
We
what
haven't
we
really
had?
spent very much because we haven't really done anything yet. Kind of we've scoped it, we've kind of tried a few things, we haven't really kind of built the kind of whole thing out yet. So we've got budget.
Yeah. So in a sense, this is almost a progress report based on the additional scoping that you guys have done and figuring out that you guys have done to try and communicate whether or not this is something, I suppose, Rob, we might still achieve what the objective is, or we might achieve something different, but maybe something still useful, or whether we should just draw stumps at the moment. Do you think you've got enough knowledge at the moment to create that sort of report?
Yeah, look, I'm kind of happy for us to dump it. I'm kind of very happy for us to build something that isn't the magic or singing or dancing thing that they've asked for. Look, I kind of, if you want to talk to them and just say like we're doing this or we're doing that, then I'm very kind of happy to follow that. But
Yeah.
I just gonna need at this point. I feel like I've tried everything. I just need you to tell me what to do.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, it's not fair for you to be having to make this decision. This is really someone else's decision, right? I guess we've just got to give them what they need in order to be able to make that. Is it red light, amber light, or green light? Is there anything more that you think you would like to do before assembling that report? Is there anything
Yeah,
else?
I mean, I think
Yeah.
like I don't know, maybe like maybe I should talk to them one more time. Like, I don't know whether we'll get anything useful out of it because we haven't so far. But maybe if I like express myself a bit more strongly this time, we might get somewhere. Like maybe we might have the right person in the room this time. Like it's worth a go because it feels like we're kind of going around in circles then.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I guess, I mean, I think it sounds important to do this report and this piece of communication, but I want you to feel sure that you've got everything in your head that you need. In other words, that there's not more that you could do to make that the most useful bit of guidance that you can. I think also, maybe you do some thinking about what the second bests might be here. I think trying to see whether there are some alternatives that you can give for decision making would be good. It would be I guess a constructive way to feedback.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if I go back and just say like, here are some options. Like maybe I'm very clear and you say like we can't build all of this, but that's like kind of option one, we do this. Option two, we do kind of this other bit of it, and then gonna try and get the discussion like
Yeah.
onto those grounds, and then like at least hopefully like I'm doing something possible.
Yeah, right. I mean, you've clearly done a huge amount of work, right? And so I guess the question is, again, if we can't get to first prize, what value can we salvage from this work if we think we can, and how do we articulate that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm sure kind of we can build something, and I just want to come out of this with kind of something useful.
Yeah, look, I mean, look, these projects are always a bit of a journey of discovery. So this is certainly not about failure, Rob. But for me, this is now about data points for the decision makers to decide, what they want to do.
Yeah, sure. And I guess like that was saying at the start, like I can like do stuff, I can build stuff, but sometimes I just need to be told, you know, that here is something possible, go and build it.
Right. Yeah, no, you need it. I think you need a refreshed mandate, basically. And so why don't we take a couple of days to think about, whether there's more that you need to dig into in order to be able to report back. And as I say, this question of whether there are some alternatives that we might think about in terms of outputs. And then you and I can meet again and discuss how we might present a report reflecting that.
Yeah, yeah, I know it sounds useful. Do you want to be if I do just like meet up with them again and just say like, this is where I think we are, like what do you think we should do? Do you want to be at that, or are you happy just to like leave it to me?
Look, either way, mate, I'm very happy to be there if you want. I think that your mission is the right one, which is to make sure that you're not feeling as if there are any stones left unturned here, and that you can defend that when we report back.
Okay. I'll drop you a message just on the morning of that one. If that's all
Yeah,
right.
no, mate, I entirely trust you to get to the right judgment on that. The key, as I say, ask yourself the question: have I done what I can? As and when the answer to that is yes, then let's write that down and we can look at that together.
No, that's great. Sounds like a good place to end it.
All righty.
Thanks,
So
Rob.
let's go ahead and
Yes.
unpin you guys, and Rob, I'll get you unpinned. There you go. Okay, let's share. Let's get to our group debrief. What'd you notice?
I think James, you were good at being like, yep, I see that, I hear that, like trying to validate him. Yeah. Think a couple times you might have given him the answer and just been like, what did you do this? Which is a good answer. But just like, and Rob was like, yeah, that sounds good actually. But maybe just like, yeah.
Yeah, no fair. Leading the witness.
Yeah.
I felt like they were working together more collaboratively rather than sort of more along the coaching side, as James was giving quite a lot of advice, as Agustine was just saying.
I felt like it took a little time, but when James was asking like, okay, and what else can you do? Like, what else do you think? Like, it got Rob to take some ownership and make some like suggestions.
And there was a graduation of moving from fixing to exploring. Yeah. A tool that I've used when I want to fix something is, what would it look like if, and then you give the directive option, and then allow that person to consider it. And then you could say, so give me what your feelings or thoughts or how you might approach that, so that they still take some ownership. And it still keeps it in the form of more collaborative, as you said, Nikki, a little less directive of the fixing. So what would it look like if is a really great way, simplest way to turn a statement into a question. One other tool that I don't know that we've necessarily talked about when offering the fixes, because there will be times when that can be the most appropriate. When I thought about sending Rob back and showing them what the second option is, equipping Rob with better questions to ask the group or in that meeting. So together, collaboratively, you guys could say, well, what questions do you think we should ask to help move it in this direction? That also helps him explore potential answers by merely saying, let's brainstorm on how we can shift how they're coming at us by shifting the kinds of questions that we ask. So there's just another little tip or tool. Anybody see anything else? Jen, got anything?
No, I think my main observation was just around some of the directive elements that sort of crept in. But there was an awful lot of recognition and validation, which was really positive.
So James, how'd that feel?
So yeah. So what I was obviously trying to do was to get Rob to think about how he would articulate this to decision makers, and obviously whether there was, in order to stimulate that important thought as to whether or not actually there is some other things I could do here. I'm not in my role play. I'm not a technical guy, so I can't engage with the technicals with Rob. I suppose we could have played the role play differently, but I'm not the technical guy, so that wouldn't work. So it's all about trying to define the problem and also communicate to Rob that this shouldn't be his decision at this point in time. His responsibility was to equip others with what they needed to take a decision. But also by allowing him to express the frustration and then take a bit of time, I mean, often the case is that when someone expresses a frustration and you acknowledge that, but you allow a little more time to ponder on it, people do come up with solutions. So just try to build in a bit of extra time for Rob to rethink whether or not there might be a solution. And in fact, by focusing on second prizes, you could get closer to the first prize again. But that's what I was trying to do. Yeah. Where did you feel yourself wanting to fix? I wanted to protect Rob to make sure that he, that the powers that be were getting what they need. Nobody was going to be badly surprised when this carried on for 3 weeks and he was still in a position where it wasn't going anywhere. In other words, I wanted him to not be the only one who was owning this problem.
Got it. Excellent. Now, Rob, how'd you feel?
Yeah, I had a pretty tricky script on this one. Sorry, James. That did, yeah, kind of start off by saying, like, refuse to accept responsibility, like say that you've tried everything, shut down inquiries. So yeah, just like moving from, like, yes, I've tried everything. Can you fix it? To, well, actually, like maybe I haven't tried everything. Yeah, I think it's kind of where we kind of got to on this. Yeah, I mean, I think kind of just kind of feeling listened to, that you can go in and vent a bit, and then when you've vented, you're in like a slightly kind of calmer space to explore, like actually kind of, hey, what can I do next? Like, kind of what actually are my options? Um, is quite empowering.
I think I was trying to, I mean, the technique in a sense is, which is probably badly implemented, is I believe your story. How are you going to tell it to others? How am I going to help you tell that story to others? That was sort of what I was trying to do, which means you don't challenge the story yourself, but you're asking someone to rethink how they would tell it to someone who might challenge them more.
Okay.
It's almost more difficult.
Sorry, Nikki, go ahead.
Just going to say, it's almost more difficult when it's an area of work that you're not too familiar with, and you're really like respecting the expertise of that individual, that they've tried everything, and so you're going along with that, whilst, as you said, just helping them to tell that story because you've got nothing else to suggest that they haven't tried. And even if you went into technical details, you're sort of completely lost anyway.
Nikki, that's so true. I mean, I help people who, I don't know what their jobs are. I couldn't help them if I tried, right? I couldn't do what they do, but it is about helping them through the discovery. So that was your intent, James, to help him tell the story, to get him to even a version 2. That's exactly where we want to try to get to, because we don't know what he knows, and we want to support him in getting the results that he wants. That was good. Okay, next and last, we have Jenna will be our coach.
Sorry, Cal, can we have a quick comfort break?
We sure can. We can take a break. Absolutely. Let's go take a little break.
Thanks. I don't.
It sounds like that's really frustrating. Did you play a big part in getting the system set up?
I mean, we're all involved, of course, as part of finance. We think about how things integrate, and we didn't have to speak to them about, what information they need to do to get their job done. We know they have external reports to do. They need to know what their capacity is so they could manage and map out their time, but I don't seem to be using it. And now we're thinking about bringing in another system, and it's pointless, because at the end of it, as I said, the finance team are going to spend more time, clearing up the mess. We have our own finance system to use, and now we're going to be using a different system on top of that nobody really wants to use.
Okay. So what do you think is like the main issue here?
I don't know. I mean, training was provided. But I know half of them didn't turn up to it. Maybe because they didn't want the system to start with. I don't know.
Okay. So do you feel like the system or your work isn't being valued very highly here?
Generally, I don't feel like people accept things when they're put in place.
Mhm.
It's been the past experience. I'm just telling you how I feel. It's just how it is. So I can't see how this new initiative is going to work.
Mm. No, that does sound really frustrating. I'm sorry you feel like that. Especially if you've, tried to push this forward and people aren't engaging with it. That must be horrible. Has this system been promoted properly? What steps have you taken to get people to engage with it?
I mean, at the moment, this new one they're trying to put in place is just an idea that they're discussing, and I don't think it's going to work. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
just not.
Have you spoken to people about this?
It's no, I haven't, to be honest. It's just from my experience.
Mm-hmm. Well, your opinion here is really important. You are finance, you are dealing with the back end of it, and it's really important how it affects your workload and your work experience. How do you think you could express these feelings with the rest of the team?
Well, I mean, we've all seen how the current systems are operating.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess some people are just waiting to see exactly what it will mean for us. I guess maybe we could just sit down and see what the expectation of this new system will be and what we already have in place just to stop us from creating something really got.
Yeah. Has the purpose of the new system been explained properly to you?
I mean, I understand what it's there for and how to use it. As I
Yeah.
said, training was provided to all the others, but half of them didn't turn up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How do you think you could get them to how do you think implementation of systems could be improved in the organization?
I mean, it was all planned out, to be honest with you. But as I said to you, the
Mm-hmm.
project managers just want to get on, deliver the project, all the resources behind it. I don't really think they care about it because, as I said, finance is finance responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Have you spoken to them about their workload and their capacity to take on the new system?
No, I didn't see that as being my role to do that.
What do you see as your role here, in implementing new systems?
Well, I mean, as we're like a core stakeholder, we're happy to provide a training to whoever needs it. But as I said, in terms of the new one that's currently being discussed, I'm happy to feed into what is required, but I just don't think they're going to use it. And I'm just worried that there'll be lots of work for the finance team to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So do you think it's going to affect your workload in the future?
It definitely will, because it's not a system I'll have to use.
Mm-hmm.
Who
And
cares?
what I'm hearing is that you think people are asking you to implement systems, but not thinking about how it affects you. Is that right?
Well, if they were actually using it, then that
Mm-hmm.
would be a good thing. At the moment, me and the rest of the team are having to update the information in the system for them. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
why can't they do it themselves?
Mm-hmm. Why do you think they're not doing it themselves?
I am not sure. Maybe that's something that needs to be picked up with their performance. I mean, can you speak to the line manager about it?
Yeah, we could take those steps, but it might be useful to talk to the members of staff who you're working with as a first option.
I mean, I could.
Mm-hmm. So what sort of steps would you take to communicate that better with the team?
I mean, I could have another go,
Mm-hmm.
and I could set up some more training session, invite them to it. We could do a few group ones, some individual ones,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess we could try and explore why is they not using it. I mean, they haven't said whether or not it's the fact that they can't, or there's something they don't like about it. I guess we could try and find out why they're resisting it and provide a training to enable them to do that, I guess.
Those sound like really good options. Do you want to like start making progress with those steps, and maybe we can catch up in a couple of weeks and see how that's gone?
I'll give it a go, but I'm not very hopeful, as I said.
And how do I'm sensing like a sort of a negative attitude around the setup of this system. How do you think that might be impacting the rollout of this?
I mean, who cares about impact? They don't, so why should I?
And well, I mean, how do you think this not caring about the impact could impact it?
I mean, I understand what he's saying. It's just really frustrating that I'm here picking up pieces all the time because, they're not getting as involved as they should be. All of us in the finance team and everybody in the admin team, IT has been helping, but they're just refusing to engage. So it's like, if they don't care about the impact, all we're doing is providing resources for them to make their job easier, then why should I? I'm just being realistic. That's just a situation for us.
Yeah. And how is it making you feel?
Very frustrated.
Yeah, I can very sense that.
Demotivated. There's just far too much work for me to do with all of this going on.
Oh, okay. So it is like affecting your workload, and is it making it a stressful situation for you?
It's making a stressful situation for me, and it certainly will be for the rest of the team as well. We don't want to be slipping on all our own deadlines because we're having to go back and trying to engage with staff who should really have been engaged with something that was built for them to start with.
Are there any resources that we can provide you to help with workload?
I mean, for us to be able to do this, we just need to create a little bit of a space and time in our diary so we could focus on getting these training sessions another go, and hopefully people take this on board and move it forward.
Yeah, that sounds like a good first step. Let's do that. And I just want to clarify, like, your work is really valuable. Obviously, without these systems, everyone's work would be much harder, and so that is extremely valuable to the team, and the organization is very grateful for that. I wonder if we could what could we do to make the value of this work maybe more visible within the team?
I mean, it's more for the project team itself. As I said, we'll go through, we'll do the training. And I think if their managers really get involved and really explain to them the importance of it, and maybe something also needs to go into their contract to say it's part of their responsibilities. And if they don't get on board, then there will be consequences.
Yeah, I can understand that. It does sound really frustrating. So let's do those first steps. Let's reconvene in a couple of weeks, and then we can think about how to escalate it if nothing improves.
Okay, I'll give it a try. Thanks, Gemma.
Okay, let's go ahead and get to all of us. And where's my pen?
A really important question. Was that any of the scenarios, Nikki, or did you dream up your own one?
I had to pivot a little bit. It was more the negative attitude in meetings.
Oh, okay. Got it. And so you thought you'd just have a bitch about the legal team and codes?
Funny you'll say that. No, I'm taking it from a situation in previous workplace.
But it's very telling that James thinks it's about his team.
Yeah, very sensitive. Yeah.
James, maybe look a little inward here.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, what did we observe?
At the beginning, I saw a really nice, so Nikki kind of started and there was a really nice, okay, tell me more about that. So not asking for any kind of thought or kind of emotion or anything, but just an okay, tell me more about that. Which I thought was a really good intro.
Definitely keeps the door open for more conversation, especially if, generally speaking, in your brain, if you're having a negative or anger kind of a thing, your brain shrinks, it goes down. The components of communication take a back seat. So whenever you allow more and more space, the communications will open up. What else? What else we notice?
It's tricky, right? I mean, Nikki sustained her frustration very effectively throughout, right? So she didn't give you much of a curve to work with. Jenna, you asked lots of good questions, but it showed how tricky it is when someone's not moving off their frustration, how it can be to get them to move. In other words, I think.
I'm still triggered from 10 years ago, James. What can I say?
What was the question that caused the shift to start to move it somewhere? Does anyone remember what it was?
There was definitely a question. So there was lots of reflecting back, and lots of trying to sort of get Nikki to think about how she could kind of change things. And then Nikki sort of was like, well, I don't care, so why don't I don't care. And there was a question around, and I did wonder about the wording of it, but there was a question around like how Nikki's negative attitude might impact on everything else. And I just kind of wondered about the word attitude, because I thought, oh, you're giving Nikki some ammunition to come back and say, well, you're saying I've got attitude. But the question in the broader sense was kind of, did then really kind of get Nikki to start to then think about like what the consequences of Nikki not giving a shit might be, and to then start bringing her background to forming a bit of an action plan and some next steps.
Right. Yeah. I don't know if Jenna was deductive reasoning of all the scenarios and figuring out which one it was. But the moment that you were able to call out the negative behavior, that's where things started to shift. So sometimes, a little bit of a shining light on what you're feeling as a leader. I don't know if you're meant to come off this way, but I'm feeling like I'm getting some like negative energy. What's going on there? You can always pull yourself briefly into the situation to say, this is what I'm feeling. And then you have the open door to say, are you carrying this kind of behavior into other scenarios where project managers don't want to partner with you, to bring even more awareness to the behavior? That was good. My one suggestion, Jenna, is slow down. Just slow down. You were like ready to go with every single question. I would just say, give it a minute, let her kind of work through those emotions. All right. So Jenna, what did that feel like for you, dealing with somebody who was so negative?
Yeah, I found that difficult. I think it took me a while to realize that the negativity was the issue. I was kind of searching for what the issue was for a while, and then I did sort of clock it towards the end. But then I don't know, it didn't feel like a great outcome, because the negativity didn't really stop. So even though there was like an action plan, I think that's kind of hard. That you're like, oh, how is this negativity impacting the team? And then you're just like, I don't care. It's like, where'd you go from that? I don't know. So it did kind of hard. I was trying to sort of end on a positive note, but maybe didn't really get there. But maybe productive, but not positive.
Anybody have any suggestions for Jenna? Like what could have been a question, or what could have been a way to pivot it, to either extending to let those emotions work themselves out, or homework to go back to and think for Nikki to think about? Anybody got any ideas?
I mean, I might have asked, because obviously Nikki cares a lot. The question as to how um, we might get others to invest as much as she is in making this work. So I suppose I might also have asked about whether or not it is really just a bad attitude thing, or there is a lack of understanding that could be worked on. I mean, she did talk about doing more training, maybe, but just trying to drill down into what the resistance, what was really driving the resistance more.
Okay, so Nikki, let us know what you thought from an employee perspective.
Me and Jen and me not caring about impact was a curveball that I was meant to throw in there. So sorry about that. But it was good. Like I felt you allowed me to vent my frustration at the very beginning. In a way, maybe because it's lived experience, it felt easy enough for me to stay within character because I'm very frustrated even now. Um, but your questions was of okay, well, what can you do, sort of thing. I felt like it did stop me from the feeling getting even more escalated than it already was.
Did you feel the shift when she brought up the negative attitude? Did that kind of help you pivot into any direction?
Um, I guess it probably did. I know it sort of caught her off guard, but it did because it allowed me to explain in a way why I was feeling so het up about everything.
Okay. Any other final words about this scenario, this spotlight? Okay. So here's where we're going to go. I'd love to just, from all 6 scenarios, just tell me a little bit about what you feel you've learned today by doing around coaching, around leadership, or even about yourself.
So look, I mean, the point the feedback you just gave, I mean, that's the taking the time thing. I mean, uncomfortable meetings, there is a strong temptation to try and get through them. And, um, resisting that temptation, taking time, taking a breath, yeah, just having those moments to percolate, which of course, if necessary, you can say, look, I just need to go and get a glass of water or something like that and come back to something, just finding a way um, to take the air out of the tires a little bit, I think is a really difficult skill. But an important one in this sort of context.
Yeah. And I mean, in a way, for me, I've always sort of felt like providing the answer is how I could best support somebody. But now it's that sort of realization that if you have a conversation in a coaching manner, allowing them to get there themselves whilst creating that ownership is just as powerful, and allow people to sort of apply that to other situations going forward as well.
Yeah, and like I think you don't need to be perfect. Just going to stick at it until you get somewhere. I think going to be comfortable in the silence, let people talk through it. Most people are kind of happy to talk through things if they've got a proper forum to do it. Like a lot of the time, the issue that people immediately present with isn't the most important or like trenchant issue. So if you can kind of take the time to make sure that you get there, like it's kind of useful. the other person too, right? Because they might not have had the space to think through it themselves yet and kind of find out what the underlying issue is. So it's, as well as getting you to a better state, it's also like more fair on them rather than not asking the kind of harder questions and never getting there in the first place.
Yeah. I think from my side, you were saying learn something about yourself. It's just like how we see it is for me to rub that line between like being empathetic and supportive and just being a bit too much and giving it a bit too much. So like, I guess for me, it's like now looking forward, focusing on kind of like where that line is and kind of like what's helpful and what's not with my team and just kind of like understanding, yeah, how to toe that line.
I mean, there's something here as well about emotional intelligence because the bit that you did, Agostina and Rob, the rambling employee, you could go into a meeting, sit down and just listen to them ranting and then walk out going, good chat, thanks for the update sort of thing. But without really recognizing that you didn't just call this meeting just for this and realizing that might be something deeper to explore. Yeah, that resonated with me.
One thing that I would also encourage you just to when you're dealing with these, so I know that there's a couple people missing, and I think Jen's going to try to pull together. I would encourage all of you to get together and let those people do some scenarios, and then you guys do observing. Because the more we can watch it, the more we learn too. Remember that you're dealing with a human, right? So it's they're coming with a problem, but you want to see how much you can coach the person and not coach the problem. Because the person needs to be given opportunity to address the problem that they're having. It's not your problem, it's their problem. So when we think about coaching people, and it's difficult because we're fixers, but to coach the person, where is the person stuck? To find their own solutions because it's just getting them past the blocker into a solutions mindset and helping them either through brainstorming or planting a seed or whatever to come up with a new approach to the problem. It's the, teach a man to fish kind of situation. Okay, so just on the last little bit, you had a personal reflection in your pre-work. Don't know if you've had a chance to do it. And if not, then I would just say, why don't we give a couple of minutes, or does everybody need a couple of minutes to do their personal reflection and really just understand from the program, what will you do differently and what will you keep practicing and anything else that was part of the personal reflection? Do you guys need about 5 minutes to just look at that? Okay. So just quiet time for 5 minutes and let you look at that personal reflection in the handout.
I want to see
people are saying, well, I've tried everything, I've tried everything, I've tried everything. You know, there are kind of points there where it becomes really difficult to just keep asking questions. When I've done that, I've tried it, I've tried it, I've tried it. So those are the ones that kind of feel like they're going to be the most challenging. I think for me, in terms of what comes most naturally, it is kind of like the empathy side of it, and the sort of, you know, kind of having a genuine sort of care for how people are and what's behind the problem. So that does come kind of relatively naturally to me. And then I think for me, it's just about improving, stopping and taking a breath, and how to word questions better so that they come more naturally. You know, my clunky question about kind of, you know, work home separation, I knew what I was trying to ask, and I was trying to ask a really nice supportive question about, you know, are you not like, well, I hope you're not having to feel like you're having to take work home because you've got stuff going on, you know, but worded it horribly badly. So it's kind of like trying to kind of work on that and getting more natural at asking questions.
Thank you. Who's next? Popcorn it, Jen. Put somebody on the spot.
Okay, Rob, sorry.
No, that's fine. I mean, yeah, I mean, I think kind of the challenging bit is if it's kind of hard to figure out kind of what the issue is, or kind of really get to the nub of what's the kind of underlying issue, and it can feel quite tricky and, you know, and disempowering as a manager. Like, I think kind of once you get, or kind of once I get to a point where, you know, we've figured out like what's the real issue here, it kind of feels like we can move to a solution on it. I mean, I think kind of just in the reflection exercise, I was kind of reflecting that I do quite different amounts of coaching with you know, people on my team. I mean, in general, kind of, you know, the people that are newer to us as an organization and are, you know, going to haven't had as much work experience, going to get more coaching as you would probably expect. But yeah, I was kind of thinking, you know, am I kind of like missing a trick here, or am I coaching the people that are more receptive to coaching rather than kind of, you know, where there's a greatest like potential impact there. So yeah, kind of one of the things that I'll take from this is that I'll try and kind of bring a bit of coaching into all of the relationships rather than kind of the, you know, like the newer stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think kind of it's interesting just to kind of think of this as the flip side to kind of what we're doing around feedback and helping the organization to be one where kind of, you know, people can give feedback and kind of give feedback to more like senior people as well as, you know, people that they're going to work with on a regular basis. And like I think there's a like a transferable skill here of, yeah, all right, if you like, you know, like see where the emotions are coming from, where when the people are saying something, and rather than just kind of, you know, directly reacting to it, or, you know, kind of not engaging with it because it doesn't necessarily kind of like match your kind of view of the world or kind of how the organization operates, kind of really, you know, digging into kind of where that comes from in like a judgment-free way. So yeah, I mean, I think there's like something around how do we build this into being an organization where we can give, and where everyone in the organization can give and receive feedback in a really effective and impactful way, and being open to that. So yeah, and anything which I can do to help that happen. I know we're going to talking about it in the ECMC meeting on Monday. Yeah, I mean that will be a big benefit from this as well.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Popcorn it.
Nikki?
Yeah, I mean, going through it, the ones that I found challenging was when there's conflict between two team members. because I'm not one for conflict. I probably shy away from things like that. But whilst you're probably able to sort a situation, then what you probably have left over is, lots of time people want you to, side with one or the other. And of course, that's not, where you want to be. You just want to, fix the situation. What you might have is these two team members having issues after the situation has been resolved, and that may impact on the work going forward. And it's then how do I, again, going back to the how do I fix it? How can I best support those team members to work better professionally whilst they're at work? I don't care what you do when you go outside, but how do we do that without it affecting the workplace? That one for me was a bit challenging. In relation to the tool felt more natural. It's the seed for me, I guess. It's like, what's the situation? Being specific with our examples, exploring a little bit more, and then finishing up with what do we do next, or the next step. So kind of feel like you've walked out understanding what's gone on, what's the issue, and who's taking responsibility on what we're going to do next time round. And in terms of things I would like to strengthen, I think at the very start of this, my issue was more active listening. So I'd be listening just to respond, and then my brain will shut off so I wouldn't hear anything else. And I've asked the question repeatedly. I kind of thought going through this process that has improved, but my thing now is more of how do I turn statements into active questions to create that environment, but also foster that sort of ownership and accountability.
Nice. Popcorn.
James, you just popped up.
Thanks, Christina. Look, it's certainly enabled me to reflect on, weaknesses. I think actually probably my traditional weaknesses. One is, I think traditionally in my prior career, I guess I tended to be a bit of a fixer, which could get in the way of enabling from time to time. The good thing about Good Law Project is that I don't know how to do most of what my team does, so I've got limited ability to be a fixer and have to focus on being an enabler, which is a good thing. But I do have quite an informal style, which I've reflected works when the vibe is good and the trust is strong, but isn't so effective when either the issue is so serious or the trust is broken down to an extent, or maybe you're in a situation such as Nikki describes where there's conflict between team members. So it's more of a different sort of resolution. And there, I've certainly reflected on the need to be more thoughtful about how I structure discussions, rather than slightly trusting to fate and the vibe, as I say. So that's been useful. It's been useful for me.
You want to popcorn it?
Yeah, thanks, Gina.
Yeah.
Right next to you.
You didn't chuck it very far.
Yeah.
I think what felt the most challenging to me were the situations where there wasn't a lot to solve, but the person wasn't given a lot to solve. Like the situation where the person was like, yeah, cool. And I'm like, okay, but how do we there's not a lot to work with. And I think I found the most challenges because there was less that I could jump on and kind of help. On the tools, I think the validating feels really natural to use, a bit too natural and a bit too far, some would say. But since having I think a handful of weeks ago, I had a look at the win one, and it went from initially being oh, that feels a bit clunky to thinking about how I could use it and really liking it. So I think the win tool, what's going on, what improvements can we do, and what the next steps are, it feels really good because it feels like a really good way of leaving the room having acknowledged what's going on, having thought of what we could do, and having agreed on something to do, which I think is really helpful. I do think I also like situations that also feel challenging, and that's I've kind of shown in my thingy is like stuff that I actually really agree with the person, and I think I find it quite hard to like moving myself as James rightly called me from like I think I strongly believe that as a manager I'm also people's advocate, and I really like that, and I think that a manager should be should be an advocate for their team and for their people. But I think as I get a bit more senior, that becomes a bit more of a problem, and kind of like how to toe that line is something that I think I feel challenged.
I'll hold the line for the institution as well as for the people. Is a challenge, right? Yeah. That's one.
So I think I find that really hard, and I think something that I would like to strengthen that side of it, because I think I've worked a lot on the like listening and the other thing, and I'd like to strengthen that line of like, how do you not overpromise? How do you toe that line for that institution? How do you, or not just an advocate for your people, but also I guess for the organization you work for, which I don't know if it's necessarily coaching, but I think it is a coaching skill for me, so that I don't go overboard. Yeah.
And popcorn to Jenna.
Yeah, Jenna.
For me, like the situations that were most challenging were the ones that were really like emotionally driven, because you have to go through a lot of layers to figure out like the center of the issue, or like what the issue actually is. So yeah, there's a lot of like questioning to do there, and like figuring out where you are with them. But I think like what's always felt natural to me from the beginning was the listening and trying to be empathetic. And I think throughout this, even today, like it's clear that like you have to lead with compassion. And like you said about everyone being a human, and like there are just emotions there, so you just have to like be compassionate, be empathetic, and like keep going with them and trying to be understanding and non-judgmental. So yeah, I really like to use like the clarifying questions and just trying to get to them better. But to keep going, I think it's hard for me not to try and solve everything as quickly as possible, and just letting people be angry. And yeah, and also like encouraging them to own it, and not trying to be directive in like the solutions.
Nice. Okay. The thing about leadership is it's you'll know tools, you'll know certain ways to address it, but it's a practice. It's nothing that you're gonna perfect, because you're dealing with people and everybody's different. Every situation, even if it's the same situation but with different people, or same people, different situation. So it is a practice, and it's something that if you put on the shelf, like even like books, it'll get dusty, it'll get outdated. So it's a muscle, because it's a neuroplasticity. It's something in your brain that you've got to constantly keep working on. So think that if there's ever a situation, even outside of work, take a lot of these kinds of tools into other types of relationships, and you'll start to see a very different way of communicating and collaborating with all different kinds of people. I mean, even if you have just an interaction at a store that could be escalating. When we talk about emotions driven, when something's escalated, it's totally escalated by emotions. When you're sitting with your parents and they're stuck on something, they've got an internal or external blocker, there's a moment that you can think, what are all those tools that I just used, and how can I put it into this situation? You'll find that these are life tools, right? Like, I don't call myself a life coach. I focus on helping people become better leaders, but all the tools are there for dealing with your children, dealing with your parents, dealing with, your social circle. So it's a practice. So the more you can practice it, the better. Any last comments, questions? Because we are at the end, people. So congratulations to all of you. Any last thoughts, comments?
Oh, this has been great. Thank you so much, Carol.
Yeah, just thank you. It has been really interesting and really educational.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Well, we are done.
I would say that the other thing that something like this does is, and again, thanks, Carol, it's been good. It also helps reveal what a well-intentioned group of people we are in this organization, which is good affirmation as well.
Yes. Yes, you are very much a collective now. And you are there you now know more about each other, and where some of you might lean into different kinds of strengths within your leadership style and the elements of coaching, help each other. Because if you could practice with one of each other before you have a conversation with whoever it is that you need to have a conversation with, it'll just go so much easier. So I'm going to put this up on YouTube, and the YouTube